Welcome back to episode 60 of Warriors Den. Today's guest is Sonny Sahota. He was previously on episode 38. He has also opened up his own martial arts school, although we're all getting hammered with current restrictions, which we discuss a little bit. You can find him on praxisjiujitsu.com. And you can follow him on Facebook and Instagram. And he is currently doing one-on-one privates, as we are allowed to. Gracious governments. lufitness.ca also is where they're located at Level Up Fitness. So this podcast, we talked a lot about Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, and some Krav Maga. Everyone's favorite love or hate guy, Gordan Ryan a bit, John Danaher, their methodology. A little bit of ranting on my part, but you know how it is. And of course, you can find more information about what I do at urbantacticskm.com if you want to come train when we're allowed to do it again. And you can find, of course, this podcast is posted on UTKMblog.com, of course, iTunes and Stitcher. And find us on Instagram, Urban Tactics KM, yes, or is it Urban Tactics Krav Maga? I can't remember. It's either Urban Tactics KM or Urban Tactics Krav Maga. And of course, we're now on Parler. Because media censorship is getting nuts. So, not that it affects me that much, but I'm branching out to all sorts of channels now. Might be a better audience for me anyway. If you really want to support us, you can go get a membership at utkmu.com. Pretty affordable. You can go through our white and yellow belt curriculum, orange belt curriculum, as I teach it. And I'll eventually get around to adding more stuff like the advanced curriculum and more access to stuff. But in the meantime, as most of you cannot come train with me directly, it would be much appreciated if you can see what I am offering training-wise and my approach. As we discuss actually in this podcast, you can learn at www.utkmu.com. Of course, the more supporters we have, the more content I can push out because, you know, I'm an adult and given COVID, I'm probably going to have to go get an adult job soon. But I'd rather not. So support Urban Tactics Krav Maga as much as you can, and then I'll have more time to produce more stuff. So you check that out. So again, Sonny is a friend of mine, and he's been doing judo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Sambo, and other styles for many years. And you could call him a martial arts nerd, I suppose. So here you have episode 60. Krav Maga is not just a self-defense system. It is a way of life. Warriors Den is a podcast for Kravists, fighters, martial artists, warriors, politicians, and general citizens. Consider this. The society that separates scholars from its warriors will have its thinking done by cowards and its fighting done by fools. Thucydides. Your host, Jonathan Fader, talks to guests in an open and uncensored format about their fights, their philosophies, and their lives. No topic is taboo, and the conversation may start in one place and end in another. As the quote suggests, you cannot separate the warrior from the politics and the world around them, as a true warrior must be a student in all forms of art and science.
You're listening to The Warriors Den, brought to you by Urban Tactics Krav Maga, turning lambs into lions.
Oh yeah, I forgot what episode we're on. Ooh, that is loud. New mics. I am here with Sonny Sahota. I always screw that up, right?
It's okay, it's all good.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Nice to be back.
Yeah, I forgot what we talked about last time. But you've definitely progressed in your martial arts journey since then. So
oh, yeah.
Let's start there. Like, what, you got up some belts and...
Well, let's start with 2020.
Yeah, why not?
Well, I lost my job during the coronavirus pandemic, and I was in a crossroads, and I could either look for a new job or go into this martial arts thing full time. So I took the step and went straight into opening up my own club in Surrey and dealing with a concussion that I'm still suffering from right now, and during a pandemic, and that's
fun.
Yeah. So opening up a club in 2020, it's kind of not the best business idea, but it's sort of working right now. I'm doing a lot of one-on-ones right now, and it was going okay for a while in August. I had some group classes going on.
Yeah.
But then the restrictions kicked in, and now we're here.
Yeah, well, we will get into that for sure, but because you upgraded your jiu-jitsu belt, right?
No, right now I don't really care about belts right now. So
the people might, though.
The people might, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Right now I focus more on no gi.
Yeah.
Focusing a lot on wrestling, no gi judo, up my leg lock game.
With Sambo, right? Or is that just through the no-gi?
What, the leg lock game?
Yeah.
No, I'm training with Matt Kwan, and we're doing a lot of the modern leg lock systems from Rob Bernanke, Danaher, some Ryan Hall stuff.
Yeah.
So that's really fascinating. I really enjoy that. And it's basically doing mostly no gi. I do miss the gi once in a while.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of progressing that way.
So why is your preference for that no-gi versus gi?
Well, I think no-gi is more flexible in terms of rules and the amount of use of technique.
Yeah.
You can definitely do more stuff in no-gi right now under the rule sets. Now, I mean, IBJJF recently has changed their rules in their no-gi divisions. You can do heel hooks now.
Yeah.
But,
only no-gi and only black belt.
And only a brown and black. Is it brown?
Brown, black.
Brown and black? Yeah. Which I think it's a start, right?
Yeah.
It's fine. But, no-gi jiu-jitsu, I think it's where it's at right now.
Yeah.
I find that a little bit more fascinating. A lot of people like no-gi a little bit more. At least here in Vancouver, they kind of tend to know the no-gi classes are getting very busy compared to the gi classes, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have noticed that people who are drawn to athleticism often prefer the no-gi because it has an advantage there, versus if I'm up against an athletic guy with a gi on, I can slow them down with the lapels. I found psychologically that the more aggressive athletic people often like that, right?
Yeah.
Versus gi, where it's more methodical a lot of the times in some ways, right?
It is methodical. I mean, with the lapels and the grips and everything. With the gi, I find that you could definitely slow things down, and it makes it more cerebral. You can really think about what you're doing. Whereas in no-gi, sometimes you have to roll the dice a little bit, scramble a bit. But there is a method to these scrambles now. You can win scramble exchanges now that the knowledge is getting out there with the thought leaders like John Danaher and all these other guys are just kind of creating systems around scrambles and bottom position, bottom wrestling positions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a really good time right now for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I don't know about 2020, but before around last year to now, I mean, it's pretty. A lot of cool innovations are happening, right?
Yeah.
And
it's funny you say that because I know you do Sambo, right?
Yeah.
And then they have leg lock. It's some of this is not. Some of it is new, of course, but a lot of it isn't. It's just reintroduced because some of the stuff had been done forever. It just wasn't mainstream.
Well, the thing with the leg locks in Sambo is there's only 3 submissions to have. It's like the straight ankle lock, knee bar, and maybe just the 2, the knee bar and the straight. They don't even have the toe hold.
Yeah.
I think that's illegal. It's considered almost like a heel hook. Whereas the modern leg locks, you got the heel hooks, the knee bars, the toe holds, and a lot of hybrid style, kind of like a heel hook, knee bar hybrids, But with Sambo, it's a different approach than say the modern leg lock game, right? So I kind of think they're very different. A lot of people say, leg locks are, they're nothing new. They've always existed. But right now, the technology we have about the modern leg locks is so different, very, very sophisticated compared to say Sambo or maybe even catch wrestling, right?
By technology, you mean bionic legs, right?
I think technical know-how.
Yeah, I think it's the systematic approach.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's almost like I approach Krav Maga like that. And a lot of people come in to here thinking I'm not going to be like that. And they're like, this is not Krav Maga, go fuck yourself. So, like, there's too much talking. I'm like, well, if you don't understand the theory, you can't apply it.
Can you give me an example? Like,
well, Krav Maga is based on principles originally, not just now. It's like, don't go to the ground. It's a common one. Well, that's the strategy. Of course, you go to the ground at certain times when the strategy fails, but you have to base it on that. Or I teach something from the Marine Corps, which is the awareness color code. Sorry, not a Marine Corps. It's a colonel, an Army colonel who came up with white, yellow, orange, red mental color code awareness, and then the Marine Corps added the black. Jeff Cooper, that's his name. Americans would kill me if I screwed that up. So that's not actually from Krav Maga, but what it actually is awareness of your mental state, and you need to be aware, because you get these stories like, I've been training, and then they get sucker punched. Well, that's to do with your mental state.
Exactly. Right? Like, I mean, when I was researching like self-defense and reality-based martial arts, I mean, a lot of it is theoretical, and it's all about situational awareness, and that's very important. You know, there's times where, you know, I came close to getting to fights, and I'm a trained guy, and mentally I would lose it. Like, I'm getting nervous, and I like, you know, I would freeze up, and that's not a good thing, right? And you know, I found that competition helps ease the nerves. Like, you get used to the well, it helps me for sure. But I mean, you're still nervous. You're still like kind of freezing up, but you get used to that feeling, right? You get used to fighting under that type of pressure and stress, right? And then you kind of move through it, right? But well,
it's like there's a common. I know people like this. They're phenomenal on the mats. They get into competition and they flip a coin, and it's their mind, right? Now, from a self-defense perspective, people have been sold this thing that it's not. It's like, if you're not mentally and strategically prepared on the street, you can have all the skill you want. It's irrelevant, because your body, nervous system will overcompensate. So, like, I spend a lot of time with new students talking a lot. And a lot of people don't like that, and it's really, they're doing drills, of course, a lot, but I've put a lot of emphasis. You need to understand. You can't just know. If you don't understand, you can't apply when parameters change. And teaching a linear system like jiu-jitsu was for so long, here's a technique, here's a position, here's a technique, here's a position, and then the new modern way of teaching it from a lot of people like John Danaher is they're systematizing it. And a lot of the other guys who are winning too are doing that too and pretending like they're not. Right. But they're actually putting a system to what they're teaching now, copying the sort of people like Danaher and other people that started that sort of approach, and their ego doesn't allow them to do that. So when I systematize self-defense from Krav Maga perspective, you know, a lot of people are like, I thought I was just going to punch people in the face. It's like, can you even throw a punch? Let's start there. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Or that, you know, I can talk about jiu-jitsu too. It drives me nuts. Not just jiu-jitsu, any martial arts where they're teaching a technique for self-defense but not conceptualizing it for self-defense scenarios and calling it self-defense. Right. You know, I've had that debate with black belts who are in jiu-jitsu going to kick my ass all day long. But the way they're teaching it is dangerous if they're teaching self-defense application. Right. You know, like jiu-jitsu, they say size doesn't matter. Yeah, go fuck yourself. I mean, martial arts is a funny world, right? The way they market itself, it's like, you know, the smaller guy can win against the big guy, and it certainly can, but, you know, it depends on this on the opponents you're fighting and everything, right? Even the self-defense world, it's like, you know, it's a lot of hacks. A lot. They're putting out this perpetual, just bombarding people with, like, the, you know, outside your door, it's completely dangerous. You gotta look at everyone like with suspect, right? You know, you gotta always be on guard. You know how much stress that's gonna put on you. I mean, I've worked with people. COVID's gonna kill you. Like, I worked in loss prevention, and some of the guys I've worked with, like, they're into, like, reality-based martial arts, or they don't train, but they're really into it though. The most important part. And then they buy into the marketing, like, oh, I gotta carry a folder all the time. It's like, dude, you live in the most safest area, and you know, in Vancouver. Like, why are you carrying a folder around and and you can't even use it? Like, this is like, it's just like very misinformed and trying to project their insecurities on vulnerable people and everything like that. So, that being said, loss prevention wrenching guys get stabbed a lot because they're usually plain clothes, and people are like, "What are you doing?"
You know, I've worked in the industry for almost 15 years, and it's actually quite rare, getting stabbed. You got to be really stupid. Yeah. You got if it's in your approach, right?
Yeah.
If you approach someone really aggressively and you're getting in their face and telling them they're under arrest, I mean, that guy's gonna he's probably gonna stab you, right?
I've seen it at Home Depot once, and they just were so poorly trained.
Yeah,
there were two big guys who knew how to use their weight, but they're just throwing this guy around who was clearly unstable, and it turned into a mess, and it was just like,
you know who Rory Van Vliet is, right? Yeah. He came out with an instructional on healthcare workers, self-defense for healthcare workers. I think that's a very good. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it, but I mean, I think that's a really good idea. The hiring process for these security companies is you can know next to nothing, and they put you in a situation where you put yourself and others in danger, right?
Yeah. I can't name names, but I have a student who works at one of the hospitals here, and this hospital is very well known for you're going to get in somewhat violent confrontations all the time. I have another student who's also joining said hospital. Now, the first student is the guy they call all the time to deal with it, because half the security guards, this is all alleged, of course, half the security guards don't want to deal with it, or they don't have the know-how how to deal with it. And then I had another student going through it at this time as well, and he was showing me a technique that they were showing, a 3-on-1 technique. And my student was like, "Oh, this is garbage." And I said, "You know what, actually the technique's not horrible. It's not the worst that I have seen. However, my response to it was, I don't think this is going to go how you think it's going to go. Because in order for that technique to work, it requires all three persons being competent, capable, and willing to do it appropriately. If all you're giving is a 1-week course on intro and then maybe a review once a year, that technique, even if I think it's okay, with 3-on-1 is not going to work." And then my student basically resisted against all the trainees. They couldn't hold him, and he's not even bigger than me. He's my size or smaller. And then, of course, the instructor, who happened to be one of these big guys, were like, "Yeah, you're doing it wrong. Just use this weight on my student." And then, of course, he held him, but the guy's 200 plus pounds. Right. And that's an issue in self-defense, is a lot of these guys are huge, and their technique's not as good as they think it is. And when they're teaching it, they're failing to compensate for their size, which is always a factor. Yes, crazy can be big, but if I'm crazy and big, I have a huge advantage over even a smaller individual who is untrained.
Well, even most of the security personnel, they're not even in shape.
No.
They're just they don't exercise, right? I mean, they might have an interest in martial arts or restraining tactics or whatever, but they I don't think they can run a block and they can't even run 5 minutes and they'll be out of breath. So, and then you add stress into the factor, and you add all that stuff, and that's a recipe for disaster, right?
Well, I once, after a stabbing downtown, got hired by a small private company to teach their staff, and about halfway through, I just said, "I'm going to be really honest, I would not have hired 80% of you." And they just looked at me like I'm the biggest prick in the world. I'm like, "You're putting yourselves at danger. You physically are not capable of this job, let alone skill-wise." And they're just and I had a conversation with a guy who worked for a very prominent security company in Canada. First of all, don't get into security if you can help it in Canada. It's not, they don't pay you enough. And he basically was a manager. And aside from the fact, he told me a story how he was proud that one of his people was being obnoxious, and he stepped in and antagonized the guy further. It's wow, you're a dick, first of all. But he was just telling me the honest, you rarely hear this, is that it's the actuaries who have the power. So the actuaries are the insurance people who decide what's worth it or what's not. And they have said, this person told me, they have done the math. It is more worth it to see an employee die than it is to train them properly.
Wow.
And when you start to realize, that's actually kind of what's going on with COVID now, is they don't actually care how many businesses go bankrupt. They don't. It's very clear they don't. Whether it's in Canada, a more socialist country, or America, they don't care, because in their minds, in their actuarial decisions, as long as enough people don't die making them look bad, or their government systems don't fail, they don't care. As long as the system functions, they don't give a shit what happens.
Exactly. You could hire basically anyone in security.
Yeah, in Canada.
Like in Canada, like it's you don't even have to speak English.
No.
Like you could just
which is a huge issue because communication is a big factor.
Exactly. And I don't mean to sound racist or anything, but that's the case right now. I'm sorry. Like
just so you know, he's not a white guy.
I'm not a white guy.
Throw that out there. Also in Canada, if you were in such a dangerous situation that you require armed security, they basically tell you have to hire the RCMP. Well, the RCMP are factually not trained in VIP protection. It's a different game.
Yeah.
They're not trained in it. And they don't have the skill set to do it properly. As you can see, that happens anytime the police in Canada get in these crazy shootouts, which doesn't happen too often. It goes horribly wrong because they're not even trained for that. Right, and so you're telling, I have to pay them to do the job that they're not actually trained for. Now, it's not a very common situation in Canada where you need armed guards anyway, but it's like, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And there's this, even though there's a cry from all the experts, we need more training and we need more money to do the training because it costs money and time, nobody wants to do it. And then the system's like, oh, no, it's not, it's something else.
Yeah. Well, I've had cops and RCMP people approach me and say, you guys see more fights than we do in a whole year, right? It's like, like they're like, actually, there's someone legitimately looking out for us. Like they're like, you guys really should change careers. Like this is a dangerous job. Yeah. But I mean, for me, coming back to communication, de-escalation, man, like maybe like 85 to 90% of it effective. Like just talking to the offender and just like, hey, look, I'm going to let you go on this one. Just give me the product back if you're talking about a loss prevention situation, or even like in a club, like you're working as a bouncer, just talking to the guy, let him have his say. He gets it off his chest, and then everything's de-escalated. Yeah, man, I can't stress enough, like de-escalation and talking to people and just letting them have their say, and then they kind of forget why they're angry in the first place, and then they leave, and then everything's kind of fine, goes back to normal, right? Yeah. But everyone's trying to prove themselves in the security industry. They want to get the stats. They want to get, the company relies on reports and
the metrics that are not
metrics,
correct.
Right? Yeah. So very few companies don't have quotas, right? Like they don't, it's just,
They're relying on metrics that don't actually tell you what you need to know, but it's something that's easy and it's measurable. And then you're seeing that all over the world now. Easy, COVID. The infection rate is up. Therefore, it's like, but that's not the metric that matters, guys. Right. It's not the metric. You're looking at it wrong. We're the experts. And it's like, but you're not using your own data correctly. Right. So what are you talking about?
It's all interpretation, right? Like, it's like no one's telling us how many people are actually sick, how many people
they're sick,
where
which groups are sick.
Exactly, right.
It actually changes your policy. So
how many people are asymptomatic? You're positive, but you're asymptomatic. How many people are in the hospital? How many are recovering at home? Like, we don't have this information,
Well, you do. You just have to go
you gotta go. Yeah, gotta go look it up, right?
Yeah. And then, but the point about that, and I do want to talk about that in depth a little bit, but it's too many people don't understand, right? The theory, right? We're talking systems about like Jiu-Jitsu or Krav Maga. So like I teach, avoid first, whether that's run or just don't put yourself in that situation, right? De-escalation, strike first and react last. Now, strike first doesn't always work for security practice, but for general self-defense, you do want to strike first if you have to, be able to justify it, of course, and then you want to react last. Now, striking first for security wouldn't be a punch; it would be a grapple more likely. Yeah. You want to grapple first, so it's act first, right?
But even that's dangerous because some of these people have like diseases and stuff. You get cut, you got Hep C. Even that. That's why like de-escalation is like the number one tool. But I mean, there are situations where you have no choice.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. The order is important.
Yeah.
So like, say someone walks in the door, it's like I just want to punch someone in the face. I'm like, no, you forgot the first two steps that are more important. And on that note, one of my instructors in Krav Maga basically said, guys, we can't just go around smashing people's faces anymore. There's cameras everywhere. There's cell phones everywhere. You got to understand this stuff.
Exactly.
And as you were kind of indicating, the ego of like, oh, bro, I like this. And you're in the wrong industry, man.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And a lot of these people are very gung-ho, right? They're young. They're 19 years old. And they watch TV, they watch YouTube videos, and they think that this is self-defense, that you got to go smash people. It's like, I'm sorry. It's just... And even companies are encouraging it. There's some companies that encourage that behavior.
Go look on YouTube, bro.
And that's crazy. And then you have people on social media recording these arrests, making the company look bad. Yeah. And it's just like, it's unbelievable, man.
Well,
unbelievable.
The lack of knowledge in the general public of use of force, just like how hard it is an obscene thing. And then they yell at the politicians just do what they say with it. Part of a politician's job isn't just to do what the constituent wants, it's to inform the constituent. It's actually both ways.
Right.
And what you're seeing in America is they're not informing constituents, they're just manipulating for power and listening to the loudest group. In Canada, I think it's not that bad yet, but you're basically getting incompetence because Canadians are too nice, and a lot of these politicians, we want everyone to be happy. It's like, no, you can't, but if you're going to screw over a group, you need to have some sort of compensation for that. The decision-making is coming out of the metrics. Like, for example, I'm not going to name the company, there's a marketing company I'm in dispute with. They claim, our product is working. I'm like, I'm not. It's not. And they're like, but the clicks. I'm like, but that doesn't translate to people walking in my door. It doesn't translate to people paying. So we've been convinced that certain metrics are, you got to follow these certain metrics, and it may apply for, say, an online store. It will not apply at all to someone walking in the door. I could have 10,000 clicks. It doesn't mean I get a single person in the door.
Exactly.
Because people could be searching from a global scale. If you have an online shop, no problem. But we're using the wrong numbers, the wrong metrics to tell us how to come up with plans and execution process. That's why the systems are so important. When you actually understand the system, you can sort of pick and choose as you go. Right. But if you're just like, nope, metric, and nope, the technique, and it's going to fall apart real quick. Right? Of course, if a system's too crazy, then you will see a less successful chance. Say, not picking on anyone, like the 10th Planet system, which is quite intricate, and requires certain skills not everyone has, and you start to see at the highest level they don't actually perform as well as you
have like. Have you trained 10th Planet?
No, I personally have not. I've trained with people.
It's very different. I mean, I haven't trained 10th Planet, but I've rolled with 10th Planet guys, and it's very different. Like,
I'm actually put off by it. Like, if I have to go into like, okay, we're doing warm-up 1A, which is an intricate, complicated warm-up, and then they're just looking at you, why don't you know how to do it? And I'm like, I'm put off by that attitude. Right? Now, a local 10th Planet gym is very good from what I've heard, and is actually producing some very good people. And I've rolled with some 10th Planet guys. For those who don't know, 10th Planet is Eddie Bravo's system. It's a no-gi system. He was famous for beating one of the Gracies, and then later on drawing when he was much older. But it's very complicated.
It focuses more on no-gi, right? Well, actually, all of it's no-gi, right? I say more on no, because I think before Eddie wore the gi pants, and then he got the rash guard, and it's like, why are you wearing gi pants, bro? Like what's? I thought you're no-gi, right?
Like, he's definitely a pioneer, and he did systematize it. Like, he did put a system to it, which is smart. He just made it too complicated.
One more thing about 10th Planet is, even though I haven't trained 10th Planet, I do end up using 10th Planet techniques. It's kind of like infiltrated itself into no-gi grappling and even Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like the truck position. Like, I find myself, I go into the trucks more often, lockdowns, so it's, even though I haven't trained 10th Planet, it's interesting how it's kind of like permeated into
but see, that's grappling. The thing. If your system is good and you have a good understanding, you can pull stuff from somewhere else and put it in, and as long as it flows with the system.
Depending on the context of it, But if you have a system that is so complex that you can't do that without the system breaking down, then guess what? It's not a good system. And the old adage, like, simple is better, is usually the best place to start, because if I can take things and mix and match within the system without the thing collapsing on itself, regardless of whether it's martial arts, government, or corporation, then you actually have a proper system that can adapt as needed within reason, right? That's why I think the conceptual aspect is, again, it's so important. But if people don't understand, because either the school systems haven't, that's half my battle as an instructor, is to re-educate people's way of thinking coming in. Because if you can't think properly, how are you going to be able to defend yourself or even avoid the situation? Because a lot of people don't even see these problems coming because they haven't been told how to read the situation and understand what's going on around them, and then they don't know how to make a good decision.
right?
Yeah.
I don't know about what you feel about that.
Well, I mean, the thing about systemizing things is you can take something that's already pre-existing and working, and then you can work with that, right? Find something that's actually working, and then you can find your own tweaks. Like if you look at like the Danaher guys, and even like someone like Eddie Cummings, when they start working those leg locks, they already were researching all the leg lock games that were happening in MMA, and they were studying what's his name? Imanari, his first name, Matsukatsu Imanari. Yeah, and his game. But then they started adding their own like. A little bit of tweaks, a little bit of adjustments, and then it kind of became what it is right now, right? Yeah. So you take something that's pre-existing, try to find it in the context of your own, in your own environment, and then it'll go through a leap, it'll go through a change, right? Yeah. And then and it'll work for within your context, and it might change over in a different arena. Like if we take the modern leg lock system here and we put it into MMA, like okay, maybe some of the principles might apply, but you definitely have to make an adjustment for that, right? So and I'll take another form of systemization.
Yeah. Speaking of Danaher and his crew, what do you think of good old Gordan Ryan?
Gordo.
and his recent move to Puerto Rico?
You know what? I try not to follow the drama. You know, I just, the old American guy goes to Puerto Rico, right? So
well, it is
a Comprador state of the United States, right? But like, I don't know. It's just.
See, I think he is pretty aggressive on some of his stances, but I tend to agree with him on a lot of that stuff. So for those listening don't know, Gordan Ryan is currently like the best grappler, no-gi grappler in the world. He actually doesn't claim to be the best overall. He just says best no-gi. And he's been winning a lot lately.
And he's achieved more than any other athlete in the shortest time of period. So the guy's basically the GOAT of no-gi grappling.
And the Brazilians hate him for it because he's a white guy and he's not Brazilian.
And he's an excellent instructor. And he's not only is a great competitor, he's an excellent instructor. Like he's got a very solid teaching style.
There's a funny meme where it's like John Danaher being like, "Oh, what you need to do is go on the interior," and then he's like, "Heel hook him, you pussy!" And I think what he's done is taken the brilliance of John Danaher and simplified it for the everyman. I've been to a John Danaher class. It's like intense, and if you're not used to cerebral way of learning, you're going to be like, "What?" You're going to be pretty lost. Going on here? I actually, it's a good thing I trained with Matt Kwan a little bit before. Otherwise, even as a purple belt, I would have been like,
pretty lost. Yeah.
What is he talking about? Because he doesn't really explain. He just expects you to know, and then does. But that one class, I've been using that a lot, and it took a while for my brain to do it. So Gordan Ryan just simplifying it, and then his trash talking though is what's made him hit the money. That he's
I think it's very intentional. Like, I mean, okay, you're the best no-gi grappler in the history of the sport, but people are going to forget about you. Like, who cares? It's like being the world champion in badminton. Yeah. Can you name me who's the world champion?
One of my exes could. I could not.
But if that champion badminton player starts talking trash and taking the sport in a very different way, or making the sport look stupid, people are going to know who that guy is, right? Or who that woman is, or whoever's trash talking, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, it's like Conor McGregor. I mean, you got to have the skill and back it up. But like, I get annoyed at people like keyboard warriors, or even in person, like, the trash talking is so disrespectful. It's not honorable. I'm like, what are you fucking talking about? Have you actually looked at history? Bushido code is made up in the late 1800s, try and reinvent Japan. It's not the traditional samurai way. They would leave their daimyos all the time if they thought they were ridiculous. Like, this is it's like modern inventions of what the warrior is. The warrior was trying to survive.
Yeah, wasn't that from Japanese Christian theologian?
Possibly. Like, I am not my Japanese.
I read an article. I read an article. I can't. I'm trying to find it for you, but it's some Christian theologian, a Japanese guy. You try to make parallels between. It
was something to do with like after the British kind of like, we're here, motherfuckers, right? And the Japanese emperor was like, we need to like kind of like Christianity with the Romans, like we need to reinvent ourselves somehow. And they came up with this like Bushido code and honor, and maybe perhaps this is speculative, that to prevent their people from getting wayward ways away from the Japanese ways and more the Western way. I don't know, but it's not this. You go into like 16th century Japan, they didn't have what's Bushido code, right? Like, they want me to do what? Like, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, we have the 47 Ronin or whatever it is, a famous story that's historically fairly accurate, not the movies, but the actual story, right? But being a Ronin wasn't like some weird thing. It's like, you want me to do what? Nah, I'm going to be a Ronin. Bye.
Yeah.
Because no one wants to put their life at risk. Like, I was watching a documentary on Miyamoto Musashi the other day. Maybe it was you. I don't know. You posted it. Someone posted it. It's funny. It was actually a New Zealand guy who was the main sort of speaking perfect Japanese because he'd been living there for like 20 years. And their telling of Miyamoto Musashi was like, oh, very disciplined, very this. I'm like, dude, wasn't he like a drunk who broke the rules all the time? Like, yeah, like it's not so much that he was a master swordsman. He just used like strategies. Like he never took a bath, so you already lost the fight if you can't deal with the smell. Came out late. Yeah. Also, there's things that people don't know about Musashi was that he was a painter and a poet. Yeah. Like his paintings are beautiful, but at that time it was a very caste system there in Japan. You're not supposed to be doing that stuff. You're like part of a warrior class. Yeah. He just said, "Fuck that," I'll do whatever I want. Yeah. And he's not really known for his paintings, but if you look him up, they're really like, and this is not just amateur stuff. This is actually quite exquisite, thoughtful things that he's doing. So very remarkable guy. But especially during that time of change when the Japanese feudal lords are kind of going out, and I think it's almost near the Meiji Restoration, right? Again, my history. Well, anyway, the modernization starts coming in. I think he was at the cusp of that right there, right? So, and a lot of the martial arts too. Like I was just listening to a podcast about Kung Fu and how Wing Chun and Tai Chi are actually modern martial arts. They're not really ancient, and it's just because of globalization and modernization has come to China. People are starting to lose their cultural identity, so they try to reinvent themselves and try to push Tai Chi. China's cultural identity was kind of killed with Mao. But. But anyway, they try to reinvent themselves and then try to make it adapt to modern times. And then we have this we have what we now know as Tai Chi and Wing Chun because of Ip Man's moving to Hong Kong, where it's a globalized society there. They have a big major trade route, and that changes the face of the martial arts itself, right? And of course, you had Bruce Lee that kind of propelled it into mainstream. But people in the West think that Wing Chun is such an ancient Shaolin martial art, and it's probably not. No, not at all. Yeah. Well, Bruce Lee, speaking of trash talkers, the guy had a mouth on him. People are always like, Bruce Lee, dude, he was a dick by a lot of people. Like he could back it up, but he would bring it back to the Gordan Ryan thing. It's like these narratives we tell ourselves about how things are, and then when you actually dig into it, you're like, no, like who's going to win the fight? The guy, if it's life or death, I'm going to cheat to win. Sorry, right? This is not ring fighting, and this has got nothing to do with honor. You're trying to kill me, I'm going to kill you first, right? And people, we've lost that sort of mentality and that approach to things. Obviously, do not go around killing people. That's not what I'm saying. No, but thinking outside the box, right? Like just going outside with the step. We'll get to Gordan Ryan in a second, but even in my jiu-jitsu journey, a lot of the success I've had in jiu-jitsu was studying other arts. I'm major proponent of judo and wrestling because that's really helped me. Even though there's guys who are way better than me in jiu-jitsu, I've managed to either outpoint them or even win the match by submission just by using more wrestling and judo, because that's an area that they're not even familiar with. They don't know anything about grip fighting. They don't know how to fight in the clinch. Once they get taken down, they get stunned for 2 seconds, and then you get to apply your technique, and they get surprised. And I've integrated a little, not a lot. I haven't been able to train as much as but wrestling into my game, and it throws people off. It really does, because people know I have bad knees, so I like to pull guard because I can't really do stand up for too long. My knees don't like it, they're used to that. But every once in a while, I'll start doing some stand up wrestling, and even bigger guys are like, oh, what the hell? And then I catch them. Yeah, even Greco. And if you can win that inside position or the outside position, like a 2-on-1 or a rear, you got the seatbelt around their back or the gut wrench, if they call it. Yeah, and people get lost there, right? And when you break the pattern, I was thinking about Musashi, I actually didn't know this till he was a dual wielder. Yes. Yeah. And it's if you go from a time, dual wield is really hard, and in most cases, it's not going to be the best. But if everybody is doing one one style, and they only know one style with single sword, this and that, and then all of a sudden someone who's mastered another style that nobody knows about, he's going to wreck them because he's breaking the patterns. They've trained all the time in the patterns, and then he comes in from the left field, and then they can't beat him because they don't know how to recognize his patterns.
Exactly.
Right?
That's a great example. And even at that time, like I could be wrong, but I think you can only fight with a long sword outside, and you can only fight with a short sword inside, right? But Musashi just kind of like broke the rules and said, "Well, I'm going to fight with both of them
whenever I want,
whether you like it or not," and that threw people off. And then people, like at that time, you couldn't refuse a duel. And then I don't know if they've had like rules or anything, but you could say, "Hey, you can't fight with two swords. Like, what's this?" You know, but they did it anyway, and they lost, and I couldn't
to death too.
I think the origin of that two sword thing was when this guy had a sickle with a chain on it.
Yeah.
And what Musashi did, he threw away his one short sword. The guy caught it with his chain, and he came close. It could have been the opposite, but he basically slashed him while he distracted him by throwing the other sword away, and then he came in and But anyway, that's
one of those things.
Yeah. But anyway, Gordan Ryan, hey, like talking trash and being, his political points are just like
he's very. I mean, as I said, I have a tendency. For those of you who don't know, he's very right wing, very much pull yourself up at the bootstraps.
He sounds like a Ben Shapiro on steroids.
A little bit, yeah. Like again, I'll agree with like 80% of what both of those guys are saying, from my perspective. But it's like sometimes they're like usually full of shit on that other 20%. But that's how you should be approaching stuff. This all or nothing is insane. Like I mean, Gordan Ryan got famous from trash. He's making his millions not just because he's a good instructor, because he trash talks and promotes himself, and he even flaunts how much money he makes off of his DVDs. And you think people would be like, "Oh, fuck you, you arrogant prick." No, they keep buying it because it's good. Right? And then everyone else is bitching and complaining. It's like, well, let's be honest, martial artists doesn't make a lot of money. And he's doing it. He's making millions and millions and millions of dollars. And
that's good for jiu-jitsu because he not only that, I really believe like those guys are changing the face of jiu-jitsu, but they could make it into a more respectable sport. Like in the weirdest way, they could make it into a professional sport.
Pay more. Treat it professionally.
Where we all can actually benefit from this, right? The methods is questionable, but
as far as
the overall promotion of jiu-jitsu or no-gi submission grappling, it's I think it's pretty good for the sport.
I mean, his move to Puerto Rico, though, like I understand it. Like basically related to COVID, that New Jersey is one of these states and New York that are they're going to wreck themselves with these draconian, non-scientific based methodologies. And I'm having the problem here. It's like, stop lecturing me about the science. I understand a lot of people are not scientifically literate, and I am not an expert in science per se, but I can read a scientific paper and realize when you're manipulating it. I can read it and understand what you're telling me. I can understand when you're lying to me. I am enough scientifically literate. COVID, whether you pick the number 40 or 50-year-olds, you're basically not going to die. Can we cherry pick the story of the 10-year-old who died? Yeah. You got to go all the way down to the bottom of the 10 paragraphs to read, oh yeah, they had diabetes. Oh yeah, they were obese. Oh yeah, they had. But you see, young people can die too. Yes, young people can die from anything. Any disease, any virus, there's always going to be that small percentage of people who just lose the genetic lottery. Statistically, people under 40 or 50 are not going to have an issue with this, even likely not to be hospitalized with this. And most people, I know people who've gotten it here, and then that is even questionable about the testing methodology, is that they're just like, I'm fine, right? They've already said asymptomatic people don't spread. That's 30 to 40% of people who test positive are asymptomatic. The martial arts community, though high risk in theory because we're close contact, is actually one of the least risky groups because we're healthier people that take a lifestyle choice that is keeping our bodies. We're actually probably more likely at risk to spend resources in the hospitals from broken bones or broken joints than we are from being a burden on the system.
And we're taking precautions. We're wearing masks masks, and we're doing everything we're told. We're doing even safer. Like we've got sanitizers.
And it's just politics. So like Gordan Ryan's choice to leave New Jersey, which is draconian. Like as much as I complain, we're in Vancouver, British Columbia. As much as I complain about what they're doing here, because I think they're making emotional-based, stupid decisions that are not based in science. We could be in England where it's straight up 1984, or we could be in New York or New Jersey, and I think New Jersey and California.
California's also like there's people moving to Texas.
I think California and New York are failed states, and they're going to fail. All the wealthy people, like on the taxation thing, right? I'm not against it outright, but not the way it's being done now. It's all this claim, the rich people don't pay their thing, and then I was actually looked at the numbers in New York. It's the top 1 or whatever 5% in New York actually pay half the taxes. They actually pay half the taxes in New York State. Wow. So it's like, when I saw that, I will never fault a wealthy person who went from zero to billions. I'm not going to rail them on that. I may go against their political beliefs or something. Where I have problems is when you're the grandson or the child of someone who made it, and you think you worked your ass off, but you didn't. That's where I get annoyed at people. But it's like this claim that the wealthy aren't paying their share. In some cases it's true, but when you hear a stat like that, wait, the wealthy are paying 50% of the overall taxes? That's like 1 to 5% of people. What is going on? So what happens when all those wealthy people leave New York? In New York, they're going to Florida. In California, they're going to Texas. How do you propose...
what's going to happen?
What do you do?
Yeah.
Tax the rich more? The only way you can do that is you go tyrannical and you say you can't leave the state, you have to pay, everything you own is ours, which is now dictatorship. Yeah. People aren't thinking these things out properly, right? You know who Eric Weinstein is?
Yes. Yeah.
I wish he'd put out more. He's my favorite intellectual in America. I forgot, I believe it was his podcast. He was talking about how economists and world leaders, they know our system is failing. They don't have a solution for it. And I feel like they're just going to run us off the cliff like lemmings because they don't have a solution. So I hear intellectuals talk about this, where they're like, all these people, we're going to roboticize. You won't have to work anymore. That's the goal. And I'm like, what are all these people going to do? And they're like, arts. It's like, do you understand human beings? Like, what about Viktor Frankl's book on, I forgot what it's called, after the Holocaust? He wrote a book on people need meaning. Right. You need. What's that book called on the meaning of life or something like that? Yeah. Viktor Frankl, famous Holocaust survivor. And he wrote the book. I can't believe it's bailing on me.
Something meaning of something.
It's a really important book to read. These intellectuals just are not answering that. What are all these people going to do? They're like, they're going to paint and they're going to create. I'm like, people. At least 50% of the population doesn't want to do that shit, okay? They do not want, they're not creative thinkers. This idea that everyone is going to be creative thinker and everything is going to be magical, like it's a Star Trek universe. They never explain how they go from the 21st century to never having to pay and everyone just works and does what they want. There's no answer. And so these intellectuals are not wrong as we want to reduce the burden on society. We want to have more free time, but what are we supposed to do with it? And
it's
no
almost right out of Marxism, right? It's like, we no longer need to go and spend our lives into labor. Now we have all this leisure time, and then we can start doing creative endeavors. It sounds a lot.
People don't do that.
People don't do that. Right?
Some people will. Maybe let's just throw out a number. 30% of people will. 30%. Let's say 10% of people are innovators, and then of that, you say 30 or 40% of people are creators, and of that 10% are innovators. It's the innovators that drive everything, not the creators. The creators are just putting out stuff. Okay, now we have 50 million artists. Well, what differentiates one from the other? Right. These are ideas that will fail ultimately because they're not answering the question. I'm just painting for the sake of painting. That's not how we work as a species. Unless we evolve into something else, this is not how we work.
Well, we're really in an era right now of great change right now, economically, politically, and it's just especially with AIs right now. And I know people who work in AI for Amazon, and they're very excited about the capabilities, but the repercussions are just like
it's problematic. They're not answering the questions. And if you talk to like a soulless, like an economist who is soulless. Not all economists are soulless, but some of them are. And they're like, well, this is just a natural economic cycle where all sorts of industries fail. It's like, we are failing because you're making us fail.
Yeah.
That's why, whether the Great Reset thing, like, whether you want to get in conspiracy, I don't think it's conspiratorial per se. I think that there are companies that have been pushing for this and governments that have been pushing this for a while, and they're using COVID as an opportunity to be like, all you guys don't need to do this work. Get out of the way. Well, history says this is how you get massive revolts, right? And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's that tension that's there, and no one's resolving that tension in a reasonable way. That's why my motto, I don't know if you saw it, learn martial arts and get guns. This is my new motto, because just in case.
Yeah.
So I don't see it.
It's a very, very uncertain time,
Very much so.
Very uncertain. Yeah. Interesting times, but very, anxiety-ridden, that's for sure.
If you want it to be, it will be more than less.
I never suffered anxiety in 20 years, and I remember the first lockdowns happened.
Yeah.
And I would rationalize everything. Everything's okay. I'm doing fine. I have a roof over my head. I'm being fed. I got some EI coming in. I'm good. And I'd wake up at night with my legs shaking, and I'd have heart palpitations, and I never had that before. And I just realized that it was anxiety. Like, it's just
they're driving it too. It's funny. I don't watch mainstream media, and I was at someone's house and they have it on all the time. And I'm like, that's why people are going nuts. Yeah. This 24-hour news cycle is crazy. It's not healthy. Now, I actually didn't have that much anxiety from the lockdowns. And if everyone's locked down, it's like that doesn't bother me. But it's these pick and choose lockdowns that give me anxiety that's not really based on science. Like, restaurants are allowed to open in Vancouver because they provide huge amounts of the GDP. Huge amounts. There's no way bars and restaurants aren't huge spreading places. Now, with that being said, for Canada, this specific Canada, and it's most likely in most other countries, 70 to 90% of deaths are in long-term care homes. In long-term care homes, elderly, 70 and older.
Right.
Why is the healthy average being penalized for this? This is where my anxiety comes from. It's the picking and choosing, the random illogical rulemaking that drives me nuts. We're all shut down. I didn't have anxiety. And as an adult male has unusual confidence for zero reason, I didn't actually think I had anxiety. And it wasn't actually, it's this year I realized, that feeling I'm experiencing is anxiety. And I didn't really think about it either, right?
See, I'm 41, so I grew up at a time where anxiety and depression and all these things were not
a thing.
Common.
Yeah. They were, but we didn't.
Yeah, but we didn't have that information, right?
Yeah.
Like, there was no internet at that time, too. So it's like, you just have to suck it up.
Yeah.
Like, that's your own issue. It's something wrong with you, right? And it's...
which is true.
It's true, but but we didn't have resources to how to cope with these things. We didn't have resources on understanding what exactly is depression, anxiety, right? So it's just... but now, I'm happy to say that we do have, because of the internet and because of, more education, people are taking these things very seriously.
Well, I think it's good it's being addressed. I actually think it's being over-addressed.
That's another thing,
It's causing actual problems. And you actually see this with teenage girls who are very susceptible to groupthink. Very susceptible, super. And when I did psychology, I couldn't finish my I got my associates. I just could not deal with third and fourth level students and professors. They're all so anxiety-ridden, and they're believing nonsense. And what I'm starting to see is, what I'm seeing, and a lot of people are agreeing, is they're convincing people they have a problem when they don't. Now, depression is real, anxiety is real, but people are being convinced they have problems when they don't, or it's something they can just suck up and deal with.
Yeah, I've met some people like that. They play the victimization role.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot. In the martial arts world, it's much less so, but when you start going outside of it, you see it a lot. Like in the office world or in universities, you see it through the roof.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Right? Did you see in America... Totally off topic. They caught Chinese spies in the U.S.
Yeah, I didn't follow that.
Yeah,
but
it's a recent, last 2 days they broke it. It's low level Democrat politicians have been caught like they distanced as soon as they found out, but it's been shown that they've been infiltrated, which starting to, where else were they infiltrated? And this reminds me of in, I don't know, 50s or 60s, where they actually caught like 600 Russian spies throughout America, and they arrested all the ones that were involved in the government, but left all the ones. They left like 400 or 500 of them out in the public. Well, most of them were in academia, and they've clearly corrupted it over the last few years. That's a theory. I think it's what's happened with academia, pushing this very left, non-logical ideology. But now you're starting to see in the political party, like, you know, you get a lot of people who are like, America's the devil, and yeah, I don't agree. They should be running around the world, starting wars and interfering. I believe you should take the Star Trek Prime Directive approach. Stop forcing democracy on people who aren't ready for it. They're not going to do it properly anyway. If they want it, they want it. But to pretend like every country in the world isn't doing it to each other is so delusional. And as we were talking, we feel our Canadian leader is compromised as well. So.
Oh yeah, like I said, he's like basically an employee of China, right?
Yeah.
So it's, we've talked about this on our last podcast.
Probably,
yeah.
it's been so long.
Yeah. But yeah. Which that was just when he just got elected, I think.
Probably. Yeah. Oh, I had that day. I had anxiety. Like when he got elected the first time, I was freaking out because I'm like, I know where this is going. Like, and exactly what I thought was going to happen is happening. And it's just like, and you know, to be fair, putting this out on the air, I can't go to China. If they ever listen, they'll arrest me because they now have laws in China saying, if you trash talk us, we'll arrest you if you come to China, which is like, what the hell?
So no plans to China, right? No.
Yeah. I would love to go, but my girlfriend's Chinese.
Even like Hong Kong's going through I think Britain and Canada are opening up for Hong Kong
refugees, which are legit in this case. And they're not politicizing it this time, because if they do it too publicly, then they get in trouble and then they deal with all the trade wars.
Right.
Like, I know they were lecturing, China was lecturing our politicians, like, how dare you tell us anything that we don't like to hear? How dare you? It's like, get the hell out of the country then. Like the consulate, I think it was the consular or something. Like, shut up, get out.
Yeah.
Like, they need more of that. Like, don't come to our country and dictate how we are supposed to run it because you don't like it. That's how we run our country. You run your country. Stop interfering with everybody else. Again, America did that too, but that's the kind of nonsense that needs to stop globally. Like, let countries run their own shit, whether you like it or not. And if they tell you to fuck off, then just don't do business with them. Like, that whole free market attitude should apply to politics as well. So it's
I've been distancing myself from politics, especially online.
It gets messy.
It's all that, I don't know, what's that documentary that everyone's talking about, that about social media? Like,
The Social Network.
The Social Dilemma.
Yeah, right? Social Dilemma. Social Network's the other one. They were talking about logarithms and stuff and how that feeds off. I thought it was actually a garbage documentary.
Oh, have you seen it?
Yeah, I thought the points they're making, great. It was a garbage documentary because it was 20 minutes interview and information, and then the rest of the hour and a half or whatever it was dramatized like actors.
Oh, that's too bad.
Showing the effects.
So it's not really
It's not a true documentary. Yeah. Now, Tristan Harris was on Rogan after that, and I was like, that's what people have to listen to. I've quoted him many times at the end of where I put it out on Facebook, where he quoted some author about his comparison of the Brave New World to George Orwell. We're all talking about George Orwell, but what's happening is more close to the Brave New World. I actually ended up reading the Brave New World, and the ending, have you read it?
Years ago.
The ending is so unsettling. And I was like angry at the ending. Not going to give it away, read the book. I was just like, it's not a clean ending, and we're so used to those clean endings. And I realized the point of that ending being unsettling, that was the point. That this world is psycho. It's like created a crazy world where the poor main character gets fucked over, and he's just losing his mind in the end, basically, something like that. Kind of give it away.
Huxley, right?
Aldous Huxley. And it's like, this guy predicted more what's going on now, way more, like 30 years before George Orwell. He was ahead
of his time. He did like psychedelics and stuff, and mushrooms and all that stuff.
With that being said, it couldn't be, if you're used to modern books, the language being used, it's hard. It's kind of like hard to read.
I remember having it was a tough read at first, but I kind of got used to it a little bit.
It's because he wrote it in the 1920s or 30s.
Yeah.
And he's basically talking about orgies in parts of the book. So he has to be very careful what kind of language he uses at that time not to get the book censored. And it just, as from a modern context, comes off as very like dry and like, why the fuck are they talking? And then he's using older English, like English. So it's, if you can get past the first third of the book, it actually starts to like really pick up. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, okay, the character development kicks in, the world building starts up, and then like that's my nightmare. Either an Orwellian world or next week I'm having a guest on from the UK. It'll be virtual, of course. And then we're gonna martial artists. We're gonna talk about that shenanigans. So it's like, that's my night. That's the thing that gives me the most anxiety, is that we're gonna turn into a world where I can't get up and make my own decisions.
Yeah.
Right.
It seems like that way, right? Like, I mean, again, like in my view, it's just uncertainty. Like, it's just this going through this period of change, and we can only speculate on. I mean, we're thinking about the worst case scenarios, right? And I'm trying to look.
Martial arts.
I mean, it's part of my lifestyle. So it's
my next PAL course is on January 29th and 30th.
You still got people signed up for that? Or?
Should, hypothetically. Everyone always does the same thing where they sign up in the last 3 weeks, and I'm like, guys, I need to know that there's people in it or I'm canceling it. It's a little bit more flexible now because I do it out of here now.
Okay, that's
good. And so, like, if not enough people show up, it's not a big deal. It's not going to cripple me. Versus if I'm renting some absurd place. Believe it or not, finding a place to let you rent to teach a RCMP certified course, because it's guns, they're like, nope, you're not doing that here.
Oh, really? They flat out refuse you?
Well, they don't, but they do. Like, they're being subtle. They just ignore you, or they don't respond, or they're a place that already has somebody. And it's like, dude, you're a private business. You can rent it to me too. No, we're not going to do that.
Wow.
And it's like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? It's just either, and then, you can rent like hotel conference centers, but it's just so expensive.
Oh, of course. I'm
not going to make any money, guys. I have an actual capacity limit that I'm allowed to have. And even if I wanted to go past that, I can't. I'm one person. Yeah. It's going to take me forever to do it. Right? For sure. Have you done it? I can't remember.
No, I haven't done it. You know what? I have done it years ago, but because I was applying for a job, but then the job didn't fall through, so I just kind of ignored it and then kind of left it. But I want to do it up again.
It's true, though. Once you get one gun, you just, like, I'm not a huge shooter because I don't have tons of money.
Yeah.
But every time I do, I'm like, I need another gun. Need to get it. It's because I hunt now, so it's I'm like, well, if I want to go after this, I need a different caliber, and if I want to go after that, I need a different. For ethical reasons, you can't use the wrong caliber. So I'm like, oh, well, I need to get another one, and then another one.
Speaking of uncertainty in the world, we were talking about CANZUK, right? Like the alliance between Canada, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. There's some trade deals happening right now between the UK and Australia. I think there's one happening right now between the UK and Canada. So that, I mean, since England is moving away from the European Union, they're trying to find another union right now. I mean, a lot of critics say it's silly, it may not work, but I mean, it seems like there's definitely something going on there.
Well, one thing you can say, again, not an expert. Actually, I want to talk about experts after, but one thing you could say that globalization and these unions and these trade deals and all this stuff actually destroy the ability of this small business to function. Because without millions of dollars, how are you going to get through the red tape, the regulations, all this stuff?
So power's been transferred from the national to the national right now, right?
Yeah.
So it's like...
And they say they support business, but like if you actually look up the definition of, like, in Canada at least, small business, like under 50 employees, dipshits, a tech company with 20 employees could be worth $1 billion. They're not in this, and you're treating them legally the same as you're treating me.
Yeah.
Right? I'm obviously not going to say how much I make. It's not a lot.
Yeah.
Right? And they're crippling our industry with these ridiculous restrictions that are they're baseless. It's complete baseless. Well, I wouldn't say baseless, but their mentality why they're doing it is wrong.
Yeah.
It's just fuck you, pay us to stay closed or fuck off. But the pull them up, the conservative ideology of pull them up by the bootstraps. In theory, I support that. But when you actually take a look at the world around it, you literally cannot do that anymore.
Yeah, you don't get afforded the opportunities to do that now because of all these restrictions
and
everything.
It's actually because of the left-wing policies in government that get in the way. So a conservative who believes in that, you can't do that anymore because the systems don't allow it.
Yeah.
Right. And I was listening to, I think, someone had, anyways, it was the head of Spotify, CEO from Sweden.
Right.
But he said, which I found fascinating, he's just like, you keep calling us a socialist country, but from an I think it was him, from an economic perspective, we have more business economic freedoms than a lot of other places. They are actually, as a small business owner, you will have the same sort of freedoms as a lot of places in the States, which means by default, you as a business owner have less red tape and less restrictions in the Nordic countries than you would in Canada, because Canada has a lot of restrictions. Oh, yeah. So when people are talking about these concepts and ideas, they don't really think them through. And what he was talking about, which was fascinating, is like, well, being on welfare in Sweden is like not stigmatized. And if you want to be on welfare and you want to pursue a career in arts and you're not making money, nobody's going to yell at you. Now, I was listening to that and I'm like, oh, he forgot a very key thing. He's not meaning any malicious about it. Is that he's not understanding the cultural difference, because if an American hears that, or a Canadian, they'd be like, oh, I can just be on welfare forever? Sweet. It's like, well, he kind of said that, but not really, because I'm going to go with, if you're sitting on your ass, shooting up drugs, doing nothing on welfare, they're not going to take too kindly to that in Sweden. What he meant is, if you're doing something creative or productive with your life, and you're on welfare, you will not be seen as a bum.
Right. If you're working towards something,
If you take a year or two off to be on welfare, to become a musician or become an artist, and you're actually producing and contributing, fine. But I know a lot of people are going to hear that and be like, I don't have to do anything? Look at them over there. It's like, dude, they're economically more free. By the way, idiots, they're way more educated, like, per capita over there. A lot. Like, I don't know if you've met people from Sweden or Finland. I'm amazed at their language abilities. Like, I've met very few of them that can't speak more than 3 languages, and a lot of them don't even have accents.
Amazing. That's the only place I really want to visit, Sweden. I don't know any Swedish people, but I mean, it just seems very fascinating. All the Nordic countries, and
history is interesting. From Vikings to all of a sudden productive global partners, right? Raping. Have you ever seen the show Norsemen?
I know about it. I haven't seen it.
Hilarious. They're basically, it's like I think it's Swedish or Finland, that are basically making fun of like the American and British Viking shows, like Vikings and The Last Kingdom. And just
great.
Playing with it, and it's in English. It's all in English, but it's made in their countries, so you can't call it cultural appropriation.
That's hilarious. That's awesome.
And they're just, the writing is so funny, just making fun of like Viking culture and what people think of Viking culture, and like raping and pillaging. They're joking about that fact. Speaking of that, like up until I think Napoleon, if you were a soldier or mercenary, you would often get paid in raping and pillaging, like as a means of being paid. And people don't think about that when they're thinking about warriors or stuff like that. It's like crazy contextually. So any predictions for 2021?
I hope it's not the same as 2020. I mean, everyone's thinking about this year as a write-off and next year's going to be better. I mean, I'm like, this could be 3 years. We don't know. I mean, things might, with a vaccine coming out,
people
things might
calm the fuck down.
But I mean, we'll see how this vaccine works. If things are going to, if the restrictions are going to be lifted, we're putting all our hopes on this vaccine.
That's why I keep telling people, stop. Oh, we'll let you open up in 2 weeks. We'll come up for the martial arts industry. We're just going to need to close because of the season. We need to give you policies and procedures. We don't know what policies and procedures. We're going to go another 2 weeks. Oh, another 2 weeks. Oh, we're just going to close another month. What the fuck?
Man, that was a big shit show.
What the fuck are you doing?
I mean...
Just admit, you don't know what you're doing.
They don't.
You don't want to take the risk because you're cowards.
They didn't know. They couldn't differ. Like, remember when judo was open? All the martial arts were closed. Oh, we're going to allow judo.
The Olympics, for those who don't know what happened in BC, judo, karate, and taekwondo, Olympic sports, who are under these provincial sports organizations, which are subsidized by the governments because they're Olympic sports. And judo BC is not for profit. The other, taekwondo and karate I'm not sure about. Taekwondo is definitely for profit. But they basically had special rules set. Everyone else had to close but them. And we're like, if this is about health, we can follow their rules. No, you don't have a provincial... These are the lawyers getting involved in this shit. Fuck off. If this is about health, if they're allowed to... And basically what happened is people got so mad about this, instead of just letting everyone follow the policies, they just shut everyone down. It's like, you lazy people.
Yeah, so now judo is closed right now.
Everything's closed.
Yeah, and taekwondo was also under Via Sport as well, so they could tell the taekwondo people to close down, but the judo guys are okay, which involves more physical contact. Everything that you are espousing that's bad.
Political hackery.
Oh my God, yeah, and. I mean, I make some of my money doing one-on-one privates with
which
judo,
are allowed right now.
But I mean, I still don't think is fair to the other martial arts groups, even yoga and other fitness people, right?
Yeah, it's absurd.
It's completely absurd.
Well, I'm not going to name a name, but there is a local person who had a very big had a very big global audience in a community that we know. And this individual is being such an arrogant prick, a scientific elitist. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. I'm sorry, he's being a prick, and he's not being rational. He's being a tunnel vision asshole. I understand the science too, dipshit. Okay. Yeah. He was on a rant recently about, Joe Rogan and JP Sears and all these people who are anti-establishment are promoting have a healthy immune system and exercise as a means of fighting off COVID, and they all make money off of supplements. Their opinion is invalid. I'm like, what the fuck are you, Mr. Science?
Yeah.
You dipshit. Have you listened to Rhonda Patrick, who is a phenomenal researcher? If more researchers were like her, we wouldn't have this dipshit problem. She basically lays out the science of having a healthy immune system will fight this off. The science is there, you piece of shit. Yes, they are making money off of supplements. I'm not taking their supplements. They're not wrong about what they're saying about how the healthy immune system. And actually, Rogan had one guy on who's probably going to be in the Biden administration, if that whole thing who the fuck knows, who basically kind of acknowledged the point about why aren't governments promoting healthy lifestyles and healthy living more as a means to fight this off. The science is there. It's actually not debatable anymore.
Even pre-COVID,
it was there.
They were exalting all the research that fights depression and all this, and I'm a testament to that too.
Yeah.
I mean, it works, right?
Yeah.
And now that COVID hit, they don't even talk about immunity at all.
Yeah,
like
it doesn't exist.
Yeah, like it's funny. Within a year, we had all this research, all this documents, all these things, and then COVID hit. Boom, nothing mentioned about immunity. Yeah. It's like it doesn't matter. COVID's going to hit you whether you're immune compromised or not, right?
Yeah.
And it's
like, I'm fairly sure my girlfriend was in China in like October. We're fairly sure she got it then.
Yeah.
Right. We're both reasonably healthy people. If I had it way back then, it wasn't a big deal.
I had a friend who was severely sick in December of 2018. Okay, and he said I never experienced a flu like that in my life.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah.
In December of 2018, he could, and he didn't. I don't know if he traveled in the States or not. I can't remember, but he came back and you know what? Now looking back, he said I might have had COVID.
Yeah, it may be me. It's hard to say.
But we don't know.
That,
he said I've been sick before, but this was like horrible. He had all the symptoms of what they describe as COVID, but
well, initially they were saying everything is COVID. It's like, guys, cut the bullshit.
Yeah.
And now I was reading, they did finally figure out why some people have crazy whack symptoms. Is that for whatever reason, for some people, apparently it comes in through the nose, not the mouth. It comes in through the nose, and it can penetrate into your brain through the soft palate.
Right.
So for some people, it can get in there directly, and that's where they're getting all these whack symptoms. But that may be true for some people, and it sucks. For the vast majority, the vast majority, that's not the case.
Yeah.
It's like I have a friend who tested positive. Their whole family is on quarantine right now. If they're still doing quarantines for 14 days in Canada, you're not following the science, because the science actually says 7 to 10 days now. So if they're still doing the 14-day, it just shows you how slow our medical system is here in Canada. Update. But she's like, I feel like I have the flu. I'm like, you might have the flu. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like,
it could be just a regular flu.
And I said, what kind of testing did they do? There's 2 types. They're doing the quick nasal swab, but they're basically doing something called PCR testing, which the creator of the fucking test said, why are you using my test for this? It cannot tell the difference between the coronavirus strains, meaning common cold and flu or coronavirus strains, and also that.
Yeah, and COVID-19, right? It's like, how do you,
You could have MERS or a SARS-CoV-1, which those two will fuck you up if you get them. 40 or 50% death rate if you get them, even for healthy people. And you could have that and not know.
Right.
It's it's because they don't want to spend the money and resources appropriately to do the correct testing, which can tell the difference. Because they have to do a swab, you have to wait 3 days for the lab to get back to you, and then it'll tell you one way or the not.
Yeah.
So you're seeing this. Obviously, you're seeing the spike now because it's cold and flu season, and they're using testing that can't tell the difference. And so a lot of people who just have cold and flu are going to test positive for corona, which is why people from the start were like, "This is not flu-like." Well, it's not the flu, but it's a cousin of the flu, so it's a reasonable comparison. Like, I don't understand.
So how are you dealing with the corona thing in your business right now? Like, what are the steps that you're doing to stay alive?
I cannot keep doing this financially for another. If they keep us locked down for another 3 months, I'm fucked. Right? Yeah. I don't. Like, we're in Canada. They give you federal funding if you qualify. I've been trying to qualify for months. But I'm too small a business, and then I don't make enough. I make too much money for some of these other subsidies, and you're probably in the same boat where you don't qualify, and it's like it's really, they don't care. It's the actuarial decisions they're making that they don't actually give a shit if an entire industry is wiped out. Because like, that's the progress of humanity. That's the way it is. I'm like, it doesn't need to be like that, and fuck you. Right? It's not smart decision making.
Myself, I'm in a fortunate position. Like, I mean, my rent is not too high where I'm at, and I'm actually getting a lot of calls for one-on-ones. Yeah. So that's positive.
Oh, there's hunger. I had to put on my website, I can't take new students obviously right now.
Yeah.
There's a demand.
Yeah, people are realizing, like, they're going nuts. Yeah. Like, it's like, I have to go to the gym and I got to burn this off, and I don't care how much I pay. I just need that 1 hour, maybe 2 hours in the week to do that. And I got some judo clients. I got some people for fitness. I got people for jiu-jitsu, even though we can't do contact. We're doing fundamental movements and concepts. Yeah. And also, like, the idea of just working with someone in person. Like, you can't, like, I mean, I understand businesses doing Zoom classes and stuff. That's great. Don't. Yeah, but you know what? That gets tiring so quick.
I've been doing them within 2 weeks of the first lockdown. I've been doing Zoom classes. I have not stopped doing Zoom classes. Initially, you get like 20% of your students, and then it's down to the same 5 people. And I have one of my instructors who has a global organization. Initially, had like 100 people on his things, and it's down to like 10 or 15 people. Yeah, and one there's a time difference issue. That's why I don't do it. It's like 6 or 7 in the morning.
Working out in your living room. Yeah, you know, it's just a different environment. Like, it's just like, but I found that working with someone one-on-one, even if it's like social distancing workouts, is it's quite beneficial. Yeah. Like people get a lot more, getting more social interaction. When the lockdowns happened early this year, the one thing I looked forward to was that 1 hour on a Thursday afternoon when my buddies would come over and we'll go to the park and we'll socially distance doing a workout outside. Yeah. And man, like it meant the world to me. That was awesome. I get to interact with someone, even if from a distance. And then we're doing workouts, we're doing push-ups, we're doing squats, we're doing running, we're doing laps, and it was great, and then, but I don't think you can do that in the comfort of your home, man. Like,
no,
you
can't.
Over on a computer screen. Like,
I live in an apartment, and I was a couple of the days I had to run the Zoom class out of the apartment. It's like, dude, I can barely sprawl. I don't have room. Yeah. Like, this is just delusional thinking. Yeah. Like, promote healthy living. Like, they're promoting all the environmental stuff, which hypothetically translate into healthy living, and yet like the whole fat shaming thing. I don't know what your stance on that.
I avoid it, but it's like
dude, lose weight. It's unhealthy, especially in a socialized healthcare system. I can understand when
people have medical conditions. I get it, right?
Some do. Yeah, some do.
I mean, you can't. Sure. It could be a glandular problem, right? But like, but I mean, I don't know. I don't want to get there. Yeah. Jonathan, I'm too cowardly to address that right now.
In a minute, no. Like for me, preventative medicine is not. What I get out of COVID is that the Western medical system, while it had brought us out of squalor and brought us out of the global poverty, is anti-preventative medicine. And what you're seeing from COVID is the corruption of the industry in the Western medicine. You're seeing that it's not as good as it should be in Western medicine. If you truly gave a shit about your populace and your fucking dollars, the taxpayer dollars, they would every year for every person do annual full blood work, not just the dinky you're the thing, the full blood log compared to your genetic markers. They can actually tell you, hey, you shouldn't be eating this food for your body.
hey, you should be eating this food. And they don't do that.
That's excellent. They should do that.
They don't do it.
Yeah.
Why? Because a lot of doctors will lose jobs. You know who's going to get phased out is fucking doctors. You know how many times I've been wrongfully diagnosed by doctors? They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They're information's out of date. They're egotistical.
Oh, when I had my concussion, like they had no idea.
Do the scan.
But the scan tells you nothing.
It can, but if they have to know how to read it.
Yeah.
Right.
But just out of my symptoms, and it was really bad, Jonathan. This was really bad. I was suffering a lot. And they just kind of just didn't know what to do. They just said, just go home and rest. And it's like, but the research says you should not be going home and rest. You should be doing something active, like going for walks, get some blood going into your brain.
Yeah. They give antiquated advice. That's what they told when they didn't understand it. Now they understand.
They're 20 to 25 years behind the time.
I would say, I'll be a little nice. I think Canada's 10 to 15 years behind on average.
But still, that's a long time. They still have to keep up with the concussion.
I went to my doctor, at the beginning of the year, just before COVID. Me and my girlfriend were experimenting with different diets, and we did this stricter than keto, fish only. I had to get off that one fast. My body was I am a meat eater. We switched over to keto, and after a little while, I was like, I just go get some blood work, right, and just make sure nothing's too crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey. And I've switched doctors a couple times since my old doctor just retired. I'm like, fuck, because he used to just understand, no, John's not a hypochondriac. If he comes in, he knows what he's talking about. And now I cannot get a doctor that understands, listen, dude, I don't come for nothing. I've done my research. Anyways, this new doctor, I'm like, hey, I've changed my diet. It's a temporary thing. I'm on a high protein diet. I just want to make sure things aren't crazy out of whack. No problem. Comes back. I think you need to come in and talk to me. I'm like, oh shit, what's wrong? He's like, you have really high LDL cholesterol. I'm like, so? He's like, you need to go on statins. I'm like, no, I don't. He's like, yeah, you do. I'm like, did you listen to what I told you about me being on a high protein diet? Of course that's going to spike. He's like, you need to go on statins. You're going to drop dead. I have some heart history in my family. I'm like, you're wrong. He's like, I'm a doctor or something. I'm like, have you read the modern research on this stuff? You're wrong. He's like, well, I have
probably
to...
annoyed the fuck out of him.
No, he's like, I have to do what the Canadian Doctors Association tells me to do, even if he knows I'm right.
Yeah.
Because it's actually another doctor did this in America. I forgot. I think he was on Ben Greenfield. He was talking about how he was on a similar thing. He's pretty much all keto. And he had his colleagues saying, you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die, your cholesterol's through the roof. He said, no, I'm not. Because he's a doctor, he's like, do the actual artery test where they check your arteries. 0 plaque, 0 cholesterol. Wow. He's like, I'm not going to drop dead. Stop your bullshit. Yeah. Right? And in Canada, our medical system is 10 to 15 years. What I find so mind-boggling is how much, hundreds of millions of billions of dollars did you spend bailing out all the businesses that you fucked over, that you could have taken that money, put it into the hospital system.
Yeah.
You can do field hospitals. You can go buy a fucking warehouse that you can profit off later, get the taxpayer money back, turn it into a temporary ICU for 1,000 beds. You know what they're probably going to say in Canada specifically, we don't have enough doctors.
Yeah.
It's first of all, nurses can do the job, get over yourselves. And second of all, why aren't there any doctors? Well, there's a shortage. Why is there a shortage? It's an artificially created shortage due to corruption in Canada. A lot of people have told me this off the record. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And I think people need to be...
It's really sad to see, how people lose faith in the institutions, that no one trusts the media, no one trusts the healthcare system, no one trusts the government, no one, it's just...
Not that I don't trust, governments inherently are, when they become bureaucratic.
Yeah.
With the healthcare system, it's that they're not trying anymore.
I can attest to that. I've as a martial artist, as a combat athlete, I got a lot of injuries, and I know what these injuries are, and I'm being misdiagnosed, and they're I had torn my ACL, and the doctor said it's psychological.
I had a similar story too,
and it's just no, it's not psychological. My leg is literally buckling out, and I can't walk properly. Oh yeah, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. It's so patronizing. It's just
what we learned is if you're not going in screaming in pain, they triage you.
I had to lie to him. I had to lie to him and say, look, I cannot sleep at night. I need to work. I need this for a job. Okay, well, I'll reference you to a knee specialist that can do that.
And they're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and they're like, how come you didn't come in sooner?
Yeah.
I said, couldn't.
It's the frontline doctors are the worst. And unfortunately, that's who we're listening to right now, the ER doc. I understand you were overwhelmed in your ER, and it sucks. your anxiety and your depression and your being exhausted, overworked, I'm sorry, it does not translate into everyone else needing to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
Because the system you're in is fucked. And people are like, you're being insensitive. You did this. I'm like, no, you're being insensitive. You're not acknowledging you're having psychological trauma right now, and you're screaming at everyone else because of it, and you don't care that businesses go bankrupt and industries go bankrupt and families are going to go starving because you're a little stressed. This is what you're there for. It's like when I was a soldier, I actually didn't like it when people called me a hero. It's like, dude, I literally have not done anything to justify that. I'm just doing my job. A lot of cops and a lot of firefighters feel the same way, is that when you are just doing your job and you haven't done anything way out of the way, you're an ER doctor, I'm sorry, you should expect this shit. What do you think is going to happen when the big earthquake happens in Vancouver? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, it's just like, you chose a job, you've accepted the life that you've chose, this is, but it's,
Like, and I get it, you guys are the most at risk, right? That's why they're going to get the vaccine first. It makes sense, but you are penalizing everyone else for your life choices, and the fact that all the doctors and nurses aren't meaningfully standing up to the system and saying enough's enough. They are, but they're in a predicament ethically, is where if they actually do what's needed, saying we're not doing our job anymore, fuck you, people die, and they don't want to do that, but that's why the governments milk them and manipulate them, and that's why they need to potentially after this say, you know what, fuck you. Everyone can die for all we care if you don't fix this system. I mean, it's a very extreme, but that's how else are they going to fix it? Like, if they don't say the system's broken. We all know our system's broken, and what is anyone doing about it? It's crazy.
Oh, I know, it's frustrating, it's frustrating. But, let's bring it back to martial arts, man.
Sure, yeah. No, just for anyone listening, what I was telling Sonny before is, for me, it's very important as a martial artist to be the warrior scholar.
Yes, that's a very important theme, because, you got to really stand up to, a lot of the manipulation and misinformation that's coming out there.
From all ends.
All ends, yeah. The warrior scholar.
Who would be your idols then in the martial arts world, if you're looking up from that perspective? Like, who would you
currently?
Yeah.
If I can't even name you one. I mean, well, who would you think? Well, what do you think?
In Krav Maga, I don't really have any, because I don't think there's anyone that stands out. It's more of a holistic thing. In Jiu-Jitsu, I do not idolize. I don't idolize nobody, but I do like Gordan Ryan, and those guys. I am, to be honest, I am not the kind of guy who's going to sit down. I'll pay for the video. I'm not going to watch them. I am just not, for whatever reason, I'm not going to sit there and watch 10 hours a day or 10 hours or 20 hours a week of videos on how to do it. It's never been me. I will learn as I go. Is it the most efficient way of learning? No. But that doesn't mean I can't appreciate, what they're teaching. Because that one class I did with John Danaher, I got a lot out of it, even though it didn't materialize for a year.
I'm watching that stuff, and that is close to 10 hours of material, and there's maybe 8 chapters, and generally 5 to 8 chapters. So what I do is I go through each chapter and I try it out in class, and it's a very long process. You're trying to make these techniques work, you're trying to get the concepts and applying it in class, and then when it starts working, things start clicking, then I will progress, right? And that's what I'm doing right now. So it's extremely long process, but at least I can say that I understand the material, and I'm actually applying it, and it's changing my game.
Well, I haven't rolled with you in a long time, but you're very good. You're a very good grappler. So don't sell yourself short.
There's people that kick me up.
Yeah, but they're
they're
the elite guys. But the average, I struggle against you. At least when I've rolled against you previously, especially the leg lock stuff. I suck at that.
Now I got wrestling to add now, so it's going to be, especially the wrestling groundwork is something that's I'm really fascinated with right now. It's just all the funk rolling and all the bottom wrestling positions when someone gets you in a front headlock position, you clear the ties and you got to fight for that single leg from the bottom. Start winning those scramble positions, the dog fights. I mean, I'm watching a lot of videos. I'm studying a lot of tape on that stuff. Yeah, it was really, really interesting.
You know, speaking of front headlock, I had an interesting situation that occurred to me, occurred. So there's a front headlock, guillotine, it's a standing position. We have defenses in Krav Maga, and what the first of which means is you're going for the groin and like sort of bridging forward throughout as well. So I was going up against a very strong, very athletic white belt, who if I'm on an off day, he's like, it's a nightmare for me. And I went to go do the defense for Krav because I'm like, oh shit, he cranked it hard.
Yeah.
Hesitated. Went to do like the where you posture up. It's too strong. Choked me out. And I'm like, well, I tapped out. I don't choke out. Don't tap early, tap often. Don't let yourself get put out. And it's just like, holy shit, like the hesitation because my brain was confusing rule sets.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, and I could see myself in slow-mo, like, Krav Maga grind, no, don't do that. Oh, what's the Jiu-Jitsu one?
That's one of the limitations of
cross-training.
Even just training, reality-based martial arts is like, you okay with that term, reality-based?
Sure,
that's fine.
As long as it's like people get too ridiculous. But it's a reasonable way to put it.
Yeah, but like that's how I conceptualized it. But anyway, like, then you're playing within a set of rules, but at the same time you're thinking self-defense. Like that's a kind of a hurdle that you have to get over, right?
Like, it can be, it is a struggle for a lot of people. Though I've known people that can't change that switch.
Oh yeah, it's either all or nothing, right?
Yeah.
So either I'm going to go.
Well, for me, even in situations I've had, it doesn't happen very often. But like in person, for me to actually engage on the street, you gotta really be threatening me. Like it just doesn't happen very often. Yeah. But I've known Krav Maga people who they can't do that.
Yeah.
Like they go right away to stopping,
turn the on
turn
switch.
It on.
Yeah.
Right. But and I can do it if I feel my life is threatened. But in Canada here, when the fuck does that happen? Not very often. Usually I'll get the spidey senses.
Could change. I mean, there's a lot of irate people right now under COVID, and I knew a guy who's.
I'm waiting for the American Civil War.
there's a guy I know. He's a park ranger, and he has to deal with he just told this one guy, "Hey, your dog's off the leash. You had to put their dog on a leash." The guy just blew up on him, flipped on him.
He pulled a Karen.
Told him hey,
what's the male version of Karen? I don't even know.
Told him he's like, let's do it. Let's go fight right now. Yeah. And he's like, dude, I'm not doing that. It's socially distant. I'm just asking you to put a leash. And he was ready to fight. But then when he said no, I can't. He called him a pussy because it's just this social distancing thing is just making
people nuts.
Bringing out the worst in people, right? And they're getting away with it because people are like, well, I don't want to engage in this thing. Yeah. But anyway, turning the on switch, that's.
Kill, go.
I find if you train combat sports and you're competing, right? I find that helps you condition yourself to deal with what you're going through in your head, dealing with the stress hormones and all that, and you can turn that on switch when you need to, right? You got to be familiar with that state of mind and also in that type of arena. And then now I don't know how that would translate because self-defense is not my specialty, but do you find any merit to that? Like how competition in sports
and no
can translate into self-defense, right?
So regardless of whether reality-based, Krav Maga, Tony Blair's spear system, Jiu-Jitsu, the one thing you're going to get consistently is essentially exposure therapy for your nervous system. It's one of the biggest problems that people experience in conflict is their nervous system jacks up, the fight or flight, like the buzzing. Yeah. And if you haven't gotten used to that, unless you're just one of those Zen people, which everyone loves but hates at the same time, that's just as calm, and you're like, how the fuck can you be like that? But unless you're one of those people, you need to get used to the stressors and competition. It's not the same. Nothing will be the same as true life and death, but it's similar from a nervous system perspective. And when I was talking about Conceptual, one of the things I need to train them is their nervous system. The techniques are you're learning the techniques, and that's what I'm teaching you. But really, what I'm teaching you is your nervous system control, right? And so, some people, I'm sorry, doesn't matter how much you train, you're never going to get it. There's something missing.
No, I totally agree. That's why I'm saying that, you're talking about the nervous system, when I'm in competition or when I had my first MMA fight, it was like everything was in slow motion, and I was on autopilot. I did not know what I was doing, but I was moving. I was punching, kicking, I was throwing. But if you ask me what happened in that fight, I completely forgot. I did not know what I was doing. But I mean, I could, of course, I could.
That, by the way, is what I would call conditioned black. Now, traditionally, in the mental color code, it's you fail to function. But to me, it's when your conscious isn't there anymore. You're not. You're not doing conscious decision making.
I was fully conscious. I was witnessing.
But you don't
myself.
remember.
I don't remember. Yeah. But everything was working fine. Like I was,
Yeah, and I would say, what's 2019 Worlds? Yeah, 2019 World Masters. Even though I won my first match, lost my second match, and I shouldn't have lost. I fucked up, so mad. But I had a revelation afterwards. My mental state wasn't really where it needed to be for a competition. And I have actually done a competition once where my mental state was not there. Like some life shit was going on, and it just I could not. I lost a match I should not have lost. But after the Worlds last year, I realized I was doing the common mistake of you're fighting to not lose, not fighting to win. Yeah. And I didn't realize I'd been doing that. And then I finally fixed it, and then COVID happened. I was going to do 2020 my big and for me, I noticed without the competitions, for me, I'm not training that much because I'm not one of these people who needs to train, which sounds horrible as a coach, but I'd take more joy out of developing people, but without that goal setting, without that building, it's for me. But I realized that mental game of it, and like we were talking about before, some people are really good in the gym, they just can't realize you need to calm down, and through exposure, just really consciously acknowledge that aspect of it in order to improve yourself. Because you can have all the skill in the world, but if you can't apply it when you need to, it's irrelevant. Right. So I don't know if that kind of.
No, it's good. I'm just really trying to understand that mindset, that nervous system stuff. It's actually a topic I should really try to research a little bit more. But we were talking about Joe Rogan's response to Krav Maga. Because I was listening to Lex Friedman's podcast, and Joe was on it, and he just flippantly said, Krav Maga is ineffective or something like that. You need to have something that's you have to fight resisting opponents.
One of my students lost his shit about it.
And and then they went on 5 or 10 minutes about it.
He's right and he's wrong. He's both.
Yeah, I'm not a Krav Maga guy, but I do understand there's different levels and there's different types of Krav Maga, and it's very different how it's trained in the military as it is for civilians, right? And I think he's conflating it all as the same
if he's in LA, a large percentage of the schools were shit. They're shit.
Okay, that's probably where he's coming from. The
instructors may be great martial artists. They're not teaching Krav Maga. They're not.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're teaching soccer mom self-defense.
So what's your response to Joe there?
He's right and he's wrong. Someone like Joe Rogan is going to be able to defend himself whether it's on the street or on the ground. Some of these Brazilian MMA fighters, good luck to the average Krav Maga fighter. If they grew up in the favelas, they're going to fuck you up, okay? It really depends on your instructor in Krav Maga and what they're doing and how much time. The average mixed martial artist will probably fuck up the average Krav Maga person. Because this attitude that Krav Maga people have that, I can just hit you in the nuts or the eyes and I can win, is, if they're a trained fighter, maybe. With that being said, if I hit you in the nuts or eyes and it stuns you, my best chance is to bail.
Yeah.
And that can happen. Now, if I smoke you in the nuts, I've seen MMA fighters hit the ground. Now, they're fucked now. Yeah. They're fucked. Because now I can stomp your face in. But guess what? What if they're one of those MMA fighters that can take a nut shot? There's people who can. So a good Krav Maga person needs to realize, do I stay or do I run? Because the old school Krav Magas always go forward, which we do want to do if you have to, because it's the overwhelming your opponent's nervous system for a 10, 15 second. We're not training to fight 5-minute rounds. We're training for a 30-second, insane thing to create our space. If we have to fight more than that, it's a problem. Something's gone wrong. There's just an overemphasis in the kill. Now, in the Krav Maga world up until recently, the attitude towards grappling was very negative because don't go to the ground. And the organizations that were integrating grappling into the programs, I thought looked too much like MMA. Like, oh, we're going to teach you how to pull a triangle. It's like, in most scenarios, it's not appropriate.
I mean, I'm a grappler, and I know I will not do submissions on the street. Like, I would probably not do that, especially heel hooks, because I will never do a heel hook someone on the street, even in self-defense, because they're not going to feel that. Their knee will pop.
Heel hooks are actually probably one of the better things if you go on the ground.
Yeah, we're not going to get punched in the face or kicked in the face if you have double lever control on the person. But, like, I mean, if I pop the guy's knee, like, most people don't feel heel hooks unless it pops, right? It depends on the person.
Well,
right?
Here's how I would, I'm going to teach it at the higher levels because there's validity. Because there are scenarios where you get punched, you drop, they're standing over you, about to stomp you. Right. That's the perfect time to do it. No, that's
totally great scenario right there. Yeah.
So you go grab, you pull the heel hook, you crank it as hard as you fucking can, and then kick them off. They can't chase you. Right. They'll try. They're not going to catch up. Yeah. Right. So it's knowing how to apply the technique. So let's take a look at triangles, for example. Jiu-Jitsu people need to stop with the triangles. If it's a one-off seminar, I'm going to teach you how to do a triangle, and you're going to defend yourself. Dude, do you know how long it took me to be able to lock triangles on people? I have tiny little stubby legs, and I have bad knees. So if the person has too broad shoulders, I cannot do it. So imagine somebody who's tiny, like a 100-pound girl, trying to do it on a 200-pound guy with broad shoulders, and they've only learned it in one seminar. Fuck off. Yeah. Right?
And you got the slams, too, right?
Which happened recently. With that being said, there are scenarios where a triangle can be useful. However, you gotta be 5 years of practice for the triangle. Which while I don't mind teaching it to my advanced students, I know it's easy to teach. It's not easy to do in practice. Right now, a girl goes in, has been doing jiu-jitsu for 5-10 years, is in a rape scenario in a private bedroom. Now a triangle is a useful thing. Yeah. Right? I saw a video, it was in an elevator. There is the famous one where the girl fucking judo throws him right into the wall, which is great. But there was another one, she pulled guard and put him in a triangle. Right? The issue is, it's not the techniques, it's how you teach it. Right. Knowing Krav Maga doesn't make you infallible. Joe Rogan is right about the average MMA fighter. If they're professional, it's gonna fuck you. I have no delusions. If I go fight Day in Cage, I'm done. I can't beat that guy. Right. Yeah, when we roll in jiu-jitsu, he's like, you're a fucking tough little fucker, but I know if it's a real fight, I'm not beating him.
And he's got more tools. Yeah, he's got more tools, and he's conditioned.
He's conditioned. He trains nonstop. He's one of the best strikers in Canada. His jiu-jitsu is solid as fuck.
Yeah, I rolled with him. He's really good.
He's tough, man. Really I mean, to me, I'll take the compliment. I make him work for it. But, I'm under no delusions. He's a bigger guy than me. I'm not delusional. And I think a lot of Krav Maga people are a little bit delusional. With that being said, Joe Rogan's flat out fuck Krav Maga is not true. Yeah. Because if you also look up MMA people who've been piped in the back of the head or stabbed or shot. Right. They don't know what to do.
Well, who's that guy who got robbed in his own house? John Jones was making fun of him.
And there's a guy who tried to rob Tim Kennedy.
I didn't hear about that one.
He chased him out of the he chased him down the alley with a gun in his hand. He's in Texas, so castle laws.
Well, this MMA fighter, someone broke into his house, and then the guy.
I remember.
Yeah, the guy explained my skills.
Was that Anthony Smith?
I think it was him. Yeah. And he was talking about how that was a really hard fight. He was really legitimately
It's a situational adrenaline.
He was trying, right? And
because there's factors in that scenario that people don't really think about. It's you're in your own house. There's a part of your brain that's don't break things, don't break things, don't break things. Yeah. There's a good chance I need to put their head through the drywall. Right now. I'm going to fucking do that. And I'm pretty sure my girlfriend would too, actually.
Well, and if it's dark and it's
a lot of people... I had a student once... I would actually flip a coin in a real fight because he's bigger than me, he's stronger than me. But I was showing a technique, and he's 200 pounds, super athletic, very strong. He put me in something, I forgot, I was in side control, and he just got my head in a crank in some way. I could not turn my neck, which means that he's got my posture, right? My alignment. Yeah. The techniques failed. It's not the technique that failed, it's that the techniques will hit a point where they fail. So how did I get out of it? I just said, okay, and I grabbed his ear and pulled it as hard as I could, and he immediately let go because he's not used to that.
Right.
And so it's, again, I can be the most proficient fighter in the world, but if my mind isn't in the right way to take it to that darkness, there is a limit. Again, as I said, if you're a Brazilian fighter who grew up in the favelas and is now a trained MMA fighter, Krav Maga people are not going to do well against that because they have the will to fuck you up, like take a Wanderlei Silva in a street fight.
Right.
I don't want to fight that guy.
Those guys in the favelas, man. Oh my God, I think I just saw on Facebook these guys literally robbed a store and they Facebook Live the whole thing, and they had like guns out of their cars, and everyone in the favelas was cheering them on. It was just such a crazy video. I think obviously it's taken off Facebook, but I saw that and I'm like, that is nutty. And a lot of people that went to Brazil that I know, and they're pretty hardened fighters. They're very skilled, but they said they were legitimately scared in some areas. Like they were like,
if you've been out of it for too long, you don't like, you know what pisses me off when people in Vancouver are like, oh, it's so dangerous. I'm like, no, it's not.
No, it's
like,
not.
As annoying as some of the homeless people are here, I'm not scared of them.
Well, they're quite harmless, you know.
Here.
Here they are.
In parts of the States, they're not harmless. Yeah. Like, if you go down to, like, Compton, like, they'll come at you,
Oh, you're
bro.
at their territory, right? Like, you're not
holy
supposed to be
shit.
there.
Like, this just, like, you want to talk a difference. Like, actually just looking at homeless people here and in the States, there is a noticeable difference in their health, a noticeable difference in their behavior, right? And people here, it's a safe city, and they get, like, I don't like them in my face. Get out of my face, leave me alone. But I'm not worried in the 9 out of 10 interactions that they're going to shank me, even if they're just going off on schizophrenia rant on me. I'm not that worried here. Other places I've been, I'm like, they might shank me, right? And then you go to a place like that, or parts of Africa, or parts of Europe. You know, parts of Europe, you get body snatchers straight up in parts of Europe too, and it's like you got to be careful. And you know, people here, it's probably why Krav Maga is not very popular here. Other than they don't know, it's just not a dangerous place.
It's like a hobby, right? Oh, Krav Maga, it's fitness,
which is
everything.
the wrong. It's the Americanized Krav Maga as a business model,
right? So and the marketing has gotten to people like that. It's got a PR issue, or it's
got a lot of PR issues. You know, there's the whole thing about commercial Krav Maga, and so depends who you ask. Like, there's a lot of Krav Maga people who are against the commercialization of Krav Maga, and they don't like belt ranking. I'm like, well, I think you don't understand humans very well. I'm very for ranking, and it's the need of progression, the need of goal setting. You have to have, I know there's no ranking in the military, and there's no ranking on the street. You gotta have that aspect.
Well, even Russian Sambo never traditionally had a belt system. It's like you just do your competitions, and you go and you get your merited Masters of Sports and local competitions, then you go to the state and then to the national level. Now, in order to make it more popular in North America, they're trying to introduce a belt system.
Yeah, I think you need it.
And a lot of these officials are in agreement. They're like, in order for Sambo to become popular in North America,
it's a human thing.
You may have to have a belt system.
There's not that. That does not make it commercialized. That's just understanding human nature. Where it becomes commercialized, Krav Maga in particular, is when you focus too much on sports, it inevitably becomes a problem. When you focus too much on the soccer mom who doesn't want to get punched in the face, well, now you're not teaching Krav Maga. If there's a battle going on where the big commercial ones, even the more legitimate ones, are losing a lot of people to some of these more like street-oriented guys. They're legit, nothing wrong, but like you get that group that rejects belt and ranking and structure because I think they don't want to do it. I think that's the reason. They just functionally don't want to be in charge of a system. And then you get the ones like in America that are like, yeah, you got your ranking. It's like, dude, like I've gone to other Krav Maga schools with my students, and I'm like, the quality, I'm happy. I can see a noticeable difference. You know, if I take my students to an MMA gym, my students will probably get smashed, but that's not what I'm training them for, right? My hope is, as I develop, and it's stupid COVID doesn't screw me over, but like, by the time you start getting black belts from me in Krav, you'll be able to hold your own against a wrestler, judoka, and all that, because I teach that stuff. But if you're teaching to a soccer mom who just wants to get a sweat and hit a bag, you're not learning Krav Maga. I'm sorry, that's not Krav Maga.
But
if you don't
have the idea that she could defend herself at the same time.
No.
Yeah, which she probably could, but not to the level. But not to the level of like,
It's like you hear the story of, I took one Krav Maga class and I defended myself. Well, okay, if I look at your life, I guarantee you're a natural athlete. Because a lot of people, you look at videos of muggings and you just like people, like an ATM mugging, which doesn't happen here very often, but you just see the panic. And like, I don't know what to do. It's like, that's your chance to run. Like, what are you doing?
Well, the thing that even in jiu-jitsu with the belt system, I mean, a lot of people put their whole identity under the belts, right? And I mean,
I used to too. I'm guilty, and now I'm like,
I think it's a very a phase that everyone goes to. But once I got purple belt, I just really didn't care. I think Jocko said the same thing. I'm not a fan of Jocko, and I don't really.
You don't like Jocko?
I never listened to his podcast. I don't know, but like, I mean, he did say some truth there. Like when he said he stopped caring at purple belt, that was exactly at the phase that I was at, and I'm like, it's so true, right?
I will be fair. Criticism of Jocko: stop spending half an hour on your podcast talking about Molk and your fucking products, okay? But I actually stopped listening to his podcast for a different reason. It's that I don't know what I'm going to get with his podcast. Yeah. Am I getting a Warvet telling his story? Am I getting him just shooting the shit with Echo Charles? Like, I don't know what I'm going to get. And I found anxiety because sometimes some of those Warvets he gets on, like, it's hard for me to listen to. Yeah. And so I don't know what I'm going to get. And if I'm in a good mood that day, I don't want to listen to it. I'm playing the lottery with it. Like, I like him. Yeah. I think his extreme ownership is a little misguided.
It's
good and bad.
Well, the whole extreme ownership. Come on, extreme.
He fucked up. He admits it. He fully admits it.
Yeah.
I found people they don't know how to do it, and that kind of ownership in an organization. First of all, it has to be top down first, and second of all, it's got to be a cultural shift. Yeah. So what a lot of people are like, I'm going to come in and be extreme owner. Yeah, go into a government agency. Yeah. And apply that. You're going to drive yourself fucking nuts.
It's too individualized, right? Like you said, it has to be part of the workplace culture.
And if it's not, it will fail. Yeah. It will fail, or the person's going to go crazy. Yeah. Right now, he'll just be like, well, they can take personal ownership and just quit. But it's like, Jocko, that's not how. I mean, yes, you can. From a philosophical perspective, you can quit and leave everything. But in practical application in real world, I got to pay rent. And not everyone's willing to just drop everything and live like a bum. Like me personally, if I'm just myself, it's not ideal. I could live out of my truck for all I care. Right. I actually have a bed set up in the back for camping already. It's mostly for camping. Like, I built this thing, but like, I'm fine with that. It's not ideal. I like my shower and my comfort, but if I have to, I can do that. But you know what? A lot of people are not going to do that. And a lot of people actually criminalize that. A lot of cities criminalize that. You can't sleep in your car. Why not?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Ironically, it's still allowed in LA because lots of people do it. Yeah. You don't have a choice. Surrey made it illegal.
But that whole, the belt thing, in jiu-jitsu, it's like, I mean, it's funny how they criticize traditional martial arts. They talk about all the belts, but then they put such high priority on their own belt system, and the people's entire careers are focused on the belt. And I think this is why I say that jiu-jitsu is going under a great transition right now, where not only the state of the art is changing, it's changing for the better. There's more. It's becoming much more sophisticated. Yeah. But the method of teaching jiu-jitsu right now has become
full circle.
The level of it has just gotten so high. I think people can actually progress in jiu-jitsu within 3 to 4 years of training. You can be a pretty decent competitor. Like if you're training. If you're putting a lot of time into it, you're training almost like a professional athlete, semi-pro, you can progress in jiu-jitsu quite well with the knowledge that we have right now, and even how it's in the direction it's going. It's very positive for jiu-jitsu as a whole, not only just in no-gi, but also in the gi as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think it's going to very quickly overtake a lot of other sports, like other martial arts as the martial art. I don't know why people are against it going to the Olympics, because that changes everything. Like, now you get, like, I know it's a money thing. A lot of people don't want it in the Olympics for a money thing, and also there's the nonsense politics, as we discussed.
And like the rules, like what kind of rules is going to dictate the, judo's gone. I mean, judo has its, because I'm also involved in the judo world too, right? And it's just like...
No wrestling, because we're losing to the wrestlers.
Yeah, or we want to make it exciting, right? Yeah. And so they change the rules. Every 3 years or something like that. I can't even keep up on how many times they change the rules. Like, different gripping strategy. You can't use these grips. If you get these grips, you only have 3 seconds to attack. It's just...
I'm sorry, but it's a stupid way to approach it, because the people who are going to watch it are going to watch it regardless of whether it's exciting or not. Unless it's punching people in the face, the average person does not find it exciting. It's just a fact. Get over yourself. It's not going to work, because, like they said, we could never make jiu-jitsu. No one's going to watch jiu-jitsu. And now you get all on Fight Pass. Like, I'll check into some of these tournaments and watch them when it suits my schedule. Like, I'm watching it, and, it's really exciting for me because I know what's going on. People who have no idea what's going on are not going to watch it in the first place. So what the fuck are you talking about? We need to make it more exciting. Right? Like, it's, again, the metrics thing about measuring the TV, who's watching what. Well, if everyone in the world loves jiu-jitsu, or everyone in the world loves judo because it's accessible, they're going to watch it. And they're taking the wrong approach. So
even like Muay Thai. Muay Thai is extremely popular. It's really, really good.
ONE FC is doing a really good job just putting it out there.
I watch ONE FC, and it's amazing. They even have like very legit like Muay Thai fighters from Thailand, like up and comers, and they're fighting in ONE FC, and it's just amazing.
Like, I started following a couple of the female fighters, like Stamp Fairfax and them. And it's just like, holy shit, they're like kicking the crap out of each other. And you're like, man, like these are exciting, and like, that's why I switched to a new phone. I need to make the ONE FC app notify me. I'm like, why haven't I been watching it? I forgot. That's a brilliant model. Like, you just change. People get so stuck in their linear way of judo, or so traditional judo, and it's like their heads are up their ass. I'm sorry, they are. And it's like, you want to make it popular, make it accessible. So someone that was complaining about the insurance requirement because it's under a provincial sports organization, even to come train in an official club, they have to pay an insurance fee. And if someone just wants to do a trial, basically the club has to let them train for free. If they want them to be in there, they got to pay whatever the $80-100 on the insurance fee. It's like, this is not a way you do the sport. There's too many lawyers have gotten involved in this nonsense, right? Every other martial art, sign a waiver, try it out. You don't like it, or you can sign up. It's taking, and then there's a club I know in judo locally that's for profit. They got kicked out of the Judo Association.
Wow.
Because they were saying people don't want to do judo if they have to come in and pay all these stupid fees for something they're not even sure they want to do in the first place. And that's what's killing judo. And let's be honest, high injury rate.
Yeah. I mean, in Canada, judo has a really interesting perception, because it's out of a community center. It's a nice...
Wham! I popped my shoulder.
It's a nice, safe sport for your family. Your kids are doing it. Of course I want to try judo, and then you actually find out what it really takes, and then
I'm always like, I'm going to do judo, and all the judokans like, nah, you're good enough. Don't do it.
Even the name, like even the word judo doesn't sound intimidating. It sounds like a very inviting. That it's kind of like the soft art, and then you do it, and it just wrecks your body. And like if you don't know how to fall, and man, it could be
or
pretty
with the
bad.
wrong partner. Like that's the one thing. If I'm ever like a bigger person who's just learning judo,
there's a lot of physics involved. You have to know.
It's the hesitation that I can break fall just fine, but if you're like, and you can't, you lose your break fall, and you're like, fuck.
If they're hesitating, now I have to force to use my strength more, and then it's not going to end well, and. But despite all the restrictions and all the red tape around judo, there's some really cool innovations happening. There's new techniques being developed because you can't do the leg grabs, right? So the kataguruma, the fireman's carry, right? There's different entries now. You can do the fireman's carry without grabbing the leg. They shoot
crotch grab.
No, they enter from different angles.
Do the full figure skater.
Right from. That should be like a Will Ferrell movie, like.
Well, he did that in Blades of Glory.
Yeah, I should do a judo one where he does.
Yeah, it's worth it. Oh, what do you think? the jiu-jitsu with no actual jiu-jitsu.
Why is jiu-jitsu media covering this? I don't understand why. It has nothing to do with jiu-jitsu.
I'm gonna throw a great one under the bus. Is Zahegan? Like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, come on. The Machados are phenomenal family, but Hegan, what he's doing with Hollywood is it's not okay. Here's your brown belt to Ashton Kutcher, and you're not a brown belt, dude. Or him like promoting that movie, and it's like, dude, this isn't even about jiu-jitsu.
It's not even about your art.
It's the wrong type. First of all, it's the wrong type. It's Japanese jiu-jitsu. Second of all, I don't even think it's Japanese jiu-jitsu.
It's spelled the Brazilian way with the J-I-U, and then, but it's...
And then it's more of like samurai shit with space warriors. What the fuck? I haven't seen it because I'm just like, I'm not paying to see this.
There hasn't been any good jiu-jitsu movies. There's probably two I can say, and one of them's not really actually has jiu-jitsu in it. It's remember Red Belt? Remember that one?
No, I do not.
You don't ever seen Red Belt?
No,
it was a very cerebral movie. It was a David Mamet movie, and it was done back in 2005 or something like that. It was very cerebral, really, didn't have a lot of jiu-jitsu in it, but it had the jiu-jitsu philosophy in the movie, and that's really, really guided the narrative. And the other one's a Hong Kong movie with Donnie Yen. It was called Flashpoint, and that had like a lot of jiu-jitsu in it.
Yeah,
like lots
probably. I haven't seen.
That was really
I'll have to
good.
go watch that.
But those are the two I can say that are probably the only Brazilian jiu-jitsu movies that I liked.
There's just not much. Yeah,
there's just not much at all. All these people are claiming that there's jiu-jitsu in their movies, but they're not really good. No. I think there's one with Gina Carano did a movie too, but there wasn't.
Yeah, but she's canceled now.
Yeah,
you're not allowed to watch
right.
her.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Well, I'm waiting till they release the full Mandalorian season 2 before I get Disney. Then I got it. They get you. It's like the only good thing on their thing. You watch all the Star Wars movies, and then you're like, what else are you producing? Nothing. And then I canceled it. I'm going to wait until the whole second season comes out. I'll watch The Mandalorian, get rid of it, because I don't like Disney's politics, what they're doing. I want to watch that show because I'm a Star Wars fan. I binge watch all the Star Wars, and then I'm like, I'm done. Like, screw you guys.
That's interesting with all the streaming services right now.
It's a war. They're like going to war with each other right now.
And even like the changing the structures of how shows are made. Like the scripts have to change. Like you have to start the movie like right off the bat. Like you have to start it right in the middle of the movie just to catch your attention because you're going to go to the next episode or the next streaming service. So the script writers are having a difficult time. They're like, where do I start and where do I end this movie?
Stop listening to the algorithm. If you, as in the entertainment industry, actually do good writing, which there are mostly hacks. All the good, there's like the good writers that write for everybody. The rest of them are shit.
Yeah.
And like write well. And if you want to educate the populace, stop pumping out bullshit just on the metrics. So they're like in this thing where I'm an artist. It's like, no, you're all sellouts because you're just listening to the metric, which what gets you this thing. And then the whole left wing, like you need this in the movie. And I'm like, listen, you want to have a strong black female character, no problem. Write a new thing with a good character with good writing. Nobody's going to have a problem with it. And it's just there's not enough good writers. Well, except the actual races. There's just not enough good writers that can actually write well.
Or the writers
put good characters.
The writers have to sell out and conform to what the algorithm or what the producers say, right?
Like it's nonsense. You're ruining everyone's entertainment thing because you want to push politics because that's the only way you're going to get paid because you're a shitty writer. Yeah. Right? Don't reinvent my character that I like. Go write your own good character. Yeah. Like, every once in a while we'll be watching something and it's like, oh, there's a black character. My girlfriend's like, oh, they're making this SJW. I'm like, no, they're not. This is actually well written. These characters make sense. Right. It makes sense that that's a strong black female character. Right. There's no illogical nature. Just fucking ram it down my throat. I don't want to watch your hacky shit. Like, good writing will solve the problem. And they're not doing that. Like side rant on entertainment. Like I didn't realize how much I appreciated good writing actually until the lockdown when I'm just like watching all this shit and I'm actually like analyzing like why is this good? Like have you seen The Queen's Gambit?
No, I heard about it though.
So fucking good.
Oh, it's good.
Like it's not historically accurate. I bet you a lot of people are like, oh, there was a strong female chess. Right. Nope, no, not even remotely close. But the writing is so good. It's like who cares? Right. Like it's a fictitious world. set in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and it's like it's so well written. There's a human factor and like the team and this and the alcoholism and all that stuff. It's really well done. There's a reason a lot of people are talking about it.
I've been really behind on my
catch up.
Really behind on my cinema right now.
Now that you can't,
I'm watching all the Danaher and Gordan Ryan stuff right now.
The opposite of me.
And it's just like because you got all these free instructionals. I'm still going through all that material, right?
Yeah.
And
as much of as it sounds horrible. Like it's just not me. I cannot. I need lots of different stimuluses.
Oh, really?
I train sometimes. I wish I had an addictive personality because I get bored doing stuff. So even doing martial arts, if I do it too long, I get bored, and then I have to do something else for a while, and then I'll come back and train a lot, and then I'll go do something.
See, I'm the opposite. Like I'm really focused on what I'm doing, and then if I get maybe get bored, I'll probably do like something similar like wrestling or judo. I'll study that, and then I'll come back to jiu-jitsu. So it's like it's all the same. Like I know, but it's same and it's not, right? Yeah. But like, I think I have that kind of like one track mind.
Yeah. A lot of people do. Yeah. That's how you get excellent at anything. Yeah. That's why you're better than me.
I wish I had hobbies. I wish I had like other things to do.
I'm playing. I just got Cyberpunk 2077 with the video game, so that's what I'm going to be doing for the next. Especially with all these bullshit lockdowns, and I can't go training with all the gyms I want to, and I can't do all this stuff, and I have to try to keep as many of my students happy as I can to keep them paying because I'm not one of those gyms that can be like, oh, I'm going to not take. Like, I'm mad at some of these big gyms. They're like, we're not publicly saying that we're not going to take people's memberships because we feel that's wrong. Oh. Well, how many students did you have before? You had like 1,000. If you were managing your business before, you can afford to do that. Us smaller gyms cannot afford to do that. I need people to keep supporting me, otherwise I got nothing. Especially if I'm not going to get this government support, which, on one side I hate taking because it's like I don't believe that's where the solution should be, but if I don't take it, I'm fucked. They trap you.
Well, a lot of the gyms in Surrey, they're either closed or they're like severely restricted. Yeah. So, but the gym I'm at, shameless plug, is open for one-on-ones.
Yeah, like, a lot of them are too. Like Budo is doing one-on-ones now. I personally I'm sorry to my students, I don't like doing Krav Maga privates. You want to do jiu-jitsu privates, I'll do.
But how, even with jiu-jitsu privates is very difficult. Like all I'm doing is telling people like theoretical concepts, critiquing their essential movements.
But I mean, even in normal times, like I don't like doing Krav Maga.
Yeah, oh really?
It's boring for me, or I'm going to get hurt. It's always 200-pound guys who want to do privates with me, and Krav Maga is tough.
Right.
And it's fine if I have to do it for like 20 minutes in one class, like in my normal, like I make my students, like you're not going to be stuck with the 200-pound guy for 5 hours of private. Like there's a difference between, hey, today you're stuck with him for 20 minutes, and it's just you and them for 5 hours of paid privates. Like I don't like it. Yeah. I'm going to get hurt. Like I have one guy from another country who was like 270, and I'm like, what am I supposed to like do with this individual? Like I physically cannot attack him in a way that makes him feel threatened. Even if I'm doing a rear naked choke, I can't even jump up onto him.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to do privates with this guy? Yeah. And he's like, well, I don't want to do any fitness or conditioning. I don't need that. I'm like, dude, I can't.
I got to work with you here, man. Come on.
I can teach you in the air, but then I know you don't feel like you're getting your money's worth.
Just teach him to lie on top of somebody.
Like it's just like, dude, like these people are delusional what they think they're coming to me for. It's like I think I'm just gonna have to start telling people who are too big, like I'm not doing privates. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. You want to do jiu-jitsu private? No problem.
Right.
I can do it with a 250-pound guy. It's easier for me to control in that situation than Krav Maga. Oh, he doesn't know how to power control, fucking full on kicks me in the nuts. Like I don't want to do that. Like it's so while if it's like I absolutely have to do privates for money, like I will, but I don't enjoy it as much. And say for kickboxing, I can kind of do privates, but I'm not the best pad holder in the world. So
I enjoy privates, actually. I do, especially right now during COVID. It allows me to become very creative. So I mean, I do enjoy teaching, and I do enjoy seeing people progress. But right now, it's definitely a challenge. But I mean, people are definitely getting some benefit out of it.
Oh yeah, something is better. And that's what I've been. That's why I'm actually mad at people too for not doing the Zoom. Like I understand, it's limited, but like during the initial lockdown where you weren't allowed to do anything, you could go for walks in the park here. Thank God they weren't that delusional. But like. You're not doing anything. And then when we opened up for a little bit, some people came back to like, I'm so out of shit. I'm like, I fucking told you, idiots. And I'm saying that as idiots because I fucking told you. It was obvious, and now a lot of people regret it. Now they're like anxiety of even coming back when we can open up again. It's like, It's like unbelievable. That's it. I don't know about you, like managing. Just I gotta go soon because otherwise my car's gonna get towed. The one time it'll get towed here is rush hour. When people come in, people have unrealistic expectations of what they're expecting when they come and train. Because with Krav, it's like non-stop. But I think that's more specific to Krav. But I'm not really sure. Like, do you get that a lot?
I don't know. Right now, I haven't been doing this too long. Right now, I just made the career switch, so I'm still dealing with different clients right now. I never really had too much of a negative experience so far. So
you'll get some people coming in well, we're not going to snap necks, bro, or something ridiculous like that.
I haven't had any weird. I mean, I'm very lucky that way. I've had really good clients, and then pretty dedicated ones too for one-on-ones. So haven't gotten there yet, but I'll probably have my fair share of weirdos coming.
Oh, you do. You do eventually.
Yeah.
Like jiu-jitsu's not like here. Budo, I think. They've only had to kick out like one or two people.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't happen that often in jiu-jitsu. And I find like Krav people self-select because I'm very like clear.
Yeah.
Like I'm subtly clear about like you might not fit in here.
Yeah.
I try not to be too direct with some people because I don't need that shit. But like I find people self-select a lot. They just like, oh, this isn't for me, and then they walk away. And then you get the odd douchebag who leaves some shit review because it's not what he thought it was. It's like, dude, you're an asshole. Like, fuck you.
Reviews are funny online.
Yeah.
It's like, I never tell people to give me a review. It has to be on their own accord. Because if you're telling people and then
actually,
give you,
that's not true. The idea for contests.
The idea of 5 stars, like everything is 5 stars here. Like every time I go everywhere, it's like okay, everything's fine. Like that.
Tim Ferriss has solved this problem. I don't know if it was his idea originally. Right. It's like you do it on a scale of 1 to 10. You can't give 7.
Okay.
And it actually gives you a more objective view of whether it's good or bad service. 6 is like, oh, now we're looking at like, oh shit. 8 is like, oh, okay. So you're forced because people want to be nice. That's why in the psychology world, fuck off, surveys, stop.
Yeah.
You are not telling me you understand human behavior from a fucking survey because that's all you can do because of ethical bullshit or money things. Fuck you. People lie on surveys. And he said take out 7 on a scale of 10. Now, with that being said, I don't know if you're following the gun grab bullshit in Canada. This hilarious. I thought it was hilarious. Current Canadian government wants to take guns. Blah 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 blah. They keep putting out on the government website bids to manage the program. It's first of all the RCMP should be doing it. The RCMP do not want to do it because like we don't want to do this because they don't want to make it look like the government's taking your guns. So they want to hire a private company. And twice they've put out bids. Twice people have said no. No companies have said it because they're not stupid. They're like, dude, our company's fucked. Trudeau announced, this employment company is going to manage. People are like, first of all, what the fuck does a temp employment company have anything to do with guns? Like, what are you on crack? But they had signed a contract. Their Google review went from 4 or 5 stars to like 1 or 2 because they got flamed online so hard. Yeah. And then it initially came out like that, no, it was a misunderstanding. That's not what the contract was for. And then the truth came out. It's like, yeah, we pulled the contract. They basically had hired a man. I understood loose. I don't know if this is correct or not, but they hired a manager from that company to initiate the process of getting it set up. And they're just like, no one's touching this fucking thing. But it shows you the power. If like, this is why a lot of companies are terrified of the reviews because if you get flamed. The other thing is like, there's a store I forgot the store, but AOC, everyone's favorite American socialist idiot.
Social Democrats.
When I found out she had a degree in economics, I was like, I laughed, like literally laughed out loud. I'm like, she clearly doesn't deserve that degree. She flamed a store, and the store got such a boost in sales because people were like, you're going to hate on that? We're going to that store?
Wow.
They trolled her by naming her Employee of the Month. I was like, that is the best. It was funny. But it can go both ways. You can get flamed and no one wants to come to you, or you can get flamed and people support you. It's hard to say.
Yeah. I like that idea. Take out 7, take out
take it
6,
out, and then force people to be honest.
Yeah. That's good. That's a good idea. Because like everywhere you go, it's like Google reviews. Everything's 5 stars. And it's like okay, it loses meaning at that point.
I did have someone give me 4, and they're like, I'm like, why'd you give me 4? He's like, because I don't believe anything that gives you a 5 for everything. So I gave you a 4, and I'm helping you out.
You know what?
I've heard other people say that.
I was on Fiverr and had to get a logo done. And I gave the guy a 4. He did a great job.
Yeah.
He did everything great on time. I liked the product. I just had to dictate a little bit of what I wanted, and he came as close as he could.
Yeah.
I gave him a 4, and he wrote me back, and he was actually quite offended. Why did you give me a 4? I said 4 is pretty fucking
You ever
good.
seen that Black Mirror episode with the social rating? That I had like.
No, I didn't see that
It
one.
gives me so much anxiety, and that's people are too obsessed. I'm sorry, nerds, you're too obsessed with the metrics. They're not paying attention to the human factor.
Yeah.
They're just not. And we need to measure everything. Because no, this is why you're screwing things up. It's like Facebook's algorithm. Oh, we got it wrong. No shit, because you're forgetting about the human factor. We don't care about the human factor. It's wrong. No, you can measure and you can do metrics. You forget the human factor, you're going to fuck things up. You can say all you want. We want the species to be more evolved. That's not how we are right now. Stop. You can use it to a degree, but if you overemphasize it, people are so like, I need the achievement. I need my 5 stars. So
I don't know. I'd be happy with 4. I mean, it's it's really hard.
I'm at the point where it's like, if you don't like me, like if you don't like it, get the fuck out. I'm not going to be that blunt to you unless you're in my face, but I'm like, I don't have patience for this shit.
Right.
If you like what I'm doing, great. If you don't, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Fortunately, everyone likes my service, so it's good. Like, they're,
Well, you know me, I'm an interesting character. So.
I know you.
Know of me. With that being said, because I got to get going.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
How can people find you if they want to do one-on-ones and privates and
I'm
future
on
classes?
Facebook. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. You can look me up at Level Up Fitness in Surrey, and I'm at Praxis Jiujitsu, praxisjiujitsu.com. It'll be on the show notes, right?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, cool.
Depends
All right.
what you want, I can put it on that, and I put it in the intro and the beginner as well.
Cool.
That's it, just Facebook and...
Facebook, Instagram, and that's pretty much right now. On my website, praxisjiujitsu.com.
I'll put it on there.
Cool.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you, Jonathan. It was really fun.
Yeah.
You're listening to The Warrior's Day. Brought to you by Urban Tactics Krav Maga. Turning lambs into lions.